Chapter 1440. Dr. Sun, is shouting all right? In the workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion, Mo Lingwei immediately asked worriedly after Sun Simiao treated Yin shouting. Sun Simiao washed his hands and said, Girl, you don't have to worry. Young Master Yan's waist is injured. After my massage and medicinal wine, he will recover in 3 days. However, it takes 100 days for bones and tendons to recover. He mustn't get injured again in the next few months. Sun Simiao's medical skills were really all-round. He was good at treating all kinds of diseases. No wonder he was called the king of medicine. However, Yin Xiaoning's injuries were mostly thanks to Li Zixuan. If it wasn't for Li Zixuan's invention of soaking medicinal wine in medicinal wine, Yin Xiaoning probably wouldn't have recovered so quickly. When the imperial court went to Nanyang last year, they realized that the grain in Nanyang was really cheap. For a time, the imperial court and merchants sent their fleets to the south to trade for grain. This directly caused the granaries in Tang Empire to be full. If it wasn't for the imperial court protecting the grain prices among the people would have fallen again and again. Those farmers would suffer losses. Li Zixuan also took the opportunity to purchase a large batch of grain. A portion of it was sealed in Yinshan, while the other portion was given to the winery to brew wine. As a result, the number of drunken immortal and gentle village on the market gradually increased. At the same time, the amount of medicinal wine supplied to the Tang Empire's military, imperial physician department, and joint medical center also increased. Good. Dr. Sun, don't worry. I'll take good care of Xiaoning and won't let him get injured again. Mo Lingwei heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. Sun Simiao explained a few more dietary taboos before he took his leave. Have a good rest, Xiaoning. I'll help you inform Uncle Yin. Li Zixuan glanced at Mo Lingwei, who was sitting beside the bed with a worried face. He then looked at Yin Xiaoning, who was lying on the bed. These two should be considered a success now, right? After pausing for a moment, he felt that he shouldn't be a third wheel here. Hey, Xiaoxian. You, don't tell my father that I'm injured. Even if you want to tell him, you can only say that I accidentally fell down. Yin Xiaoning, who was lying on the bed, hurriedly replied. Li Zixuan was stunned when he heard this. He immediately understood that Yin Xiaoning didn't want Yin lied to blame Mo Lingwei. Thus, he couldn't help but take a deep look at Yin Xiaoning. He thought to himself, who would have thought that the steely straight man who didn't understand romance would actually become so considerate of others? The changes in the world were truly unimaginable. Good. I'll cover for you. After a moment of silence, Li Zixuan responded and then turned to leave. Only Mo Lingwei and Yin Xiaoning were left in the room. Mo Lingwei affectionately looked at the man lying on the bed. She couldn't help but reminisce about the past. She realized that although this person would usually bicker with her and make her angry, he would always be considerate of her at critical moments. This kind of sincerity made her have the urge to cry. Little Ningzi, why are you so nice to me? After a long silence, Mo Lingwei finally couldn't help but ask. Although Yin Xiaoning, who was lying on the bed, had his back facing Mo Lingwei, he felt that Mo Lingwei was definitely looking at him from behind. However, Mo Lingwei didn't say anything, and he didn't know what to say. Or rather, he was afraid that he would say the wrong thing and cause a conflict between the two of them. At this moment, he finally heard Mo Lingwei's voice from behind. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief and replied without hesitation. Nothing. I just felt that it would be embarrassing to say that I was injured by a woman. So I asked Yamacho to cover for me. You. Mo Lingwei's brows furrowed, and she was about to fly into a rage. However, she immediately understood that Yin Xiaoning said this intentionally to comfort her. Thus, the anger in her eyes quickly turned into infinite gentleness. Indeed, this girl changed her face faster than flipping a book. Little Ningzi, does your waist still hurt? I'll help you apply the ointment. Mo Lingwei said gently. Yin Xiaoning instantly quivered because he had never heard Mo Lingwei speak so gently to someone. He couldn't help but say, don't talk like that. I'm a little scared. Silence. After Yin Xiaoning finished speaking, The room suddenly fell silent for 3 breaths of time. However, this was just the calm before the storm. In the next moment, Yin shouting would be greeted by a violent storm. Yin shouting, "Hurry up and take off your clothes. I'll help you apply the ointment." Walala. Feeling the shock of this super strong sound wave, the birds on the branches outside the room immediately flapped their wings and flew away. Ouch! Wayer, gentler, gentler. After a while, Yin Shouning's miserable howls came from the room. The servants in the yard couldn't help but look at each other. They secretly thought that the man and woman in the room were two. That, weren't they? One was a female professor at Yanhuang College, and the other was the son of the current Minister of Works. The two of them were actually doing that in broad daylight. How immoral! Unaware that Yin Shouning and Mo Lingwei had already been labeled as wanton and unruly by the workers in the workshop, Li Zixuan was riding his little donkey. Oh no, it was a little electric bike on a small road in the countryside. He hummed a little tune along the way and enjoyed the summer breeze. It was really comfortable. However, this beautiful electric bike with amazing functions attracted the attention of many people along the way. Hey, look, isn't that Marquis? It's really Marquis. But what kind of bike is Marquis riding? How can it run so fast without pedaling? This must be a bike that only immortals can ride. Otherwise, how can it move by itself? It's amazing. This thing looks like a bicycle, but it's very different from a bicycle. A bicycle's pedals are installed on the front wheel, but this bike's pedals are installed in the middle. Also, this bike can run without pedaling at all. It's even faster than a horse. This must be an immortal's bike. It looks like Marquis just came out of the workshop. Could it be that the workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion made this magical bike? It must be. This workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion is really amazing. They can even make a bike that immortals can sit on. I wonder how much this bike can be sold for? Sigh. I'm afraid that ordinary people like us can't count on it for the rest of our lives. Hey, you can't say that. Marquis loves his people like his children. Under the leadership of Marquis, we will definitely become richer and richer. Don't you see that many people can afford to eat meat now? Who would dare to think about this in the past? Maybe one day, every family will be able to afford this kind of immortal bike. Yes. As the people of Marquis fiefdom, our lives will definitely become better and better. As Li Zixuan passed by, he caused exclamations along the way. This was the first time the commoners had seen a car that didn't need to be pulled by a horse or pedaled. They all thought that the electric bicycle was an immortal car. However, although the people were talking about it, they did not dare to go up and ask Li Zixuan what kind of bike it was. This was because everyone was in awe of the unknown. Especially when Li Zixuan was riding on the electric bike. He looked like an immortal. It was even more frightening that they did not dare to go up to him. It was already late. Li Zixuan did not plan to return to Lantian County that night. He planned to spend the night in Yunshan. He also wanted to test the electric bike's ability to climb hills. The results showed that normal hills were not difficult for an electric bike at full speed. Li Zixuan rode the electric bike up the half-mile hill in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Woo! The roar of the electric bike came from the entrance of Yanhuang College. It attracted the attention of the students in the college. Some even ran out of the college to investigate. Today was Sunday. The students usually returned to school in the afternoon. This was because from this week onwards, the college added a new night self-study session. There was also a night self-study session on Sunday night. The students, regardless of whether they lived far away or near, had to return to the college on Sunday afternoon. It was not yet time for the night self-study session, so there were still many students who came out to watch the fun. Wow, it's Yamacho. What kind of bike is Yamacho riding? Why is it running so fast? Hey, did you notice that Yamacho's feet did not move at all, but the bike was running so fast? What kind of logic is this? Didn't Mr. M.O. teach us the conservation of energy? Then where does Yamacho's kinetic energy come from? It's obvious that this guy has been poisoned too deeply by physics and can't extricate himself. I think there must be something incredible installed on the mountain cavalry's carriage. Perhaps it's this thing that's generating kinetic energy that's driving the carriage forward so quickly. What on earth is that thing? How would I know? When Yamacho comes to the college tomorrow, we will ask him personally. It had to be said that these students who had received formal engineering education had a completely different way of thinking from ordinary people. When ordinary people saw the electric bicycle, they immediately categorized it as a vehicle for immortals. However, when the students of Yen Wang Academy saw the electric bicycle, they did not categorize it as a groundless supernatural power. Instead, they were seriously thinking about what provided the kinetic energy for the bicycle. Damn, when I left in the afternoon, Yamacho was still normal. But why is Yamacho riding such an awesome bike? Chinke, tell me, what is with Yamacho's bike? Where did it come from? Chingchumo heard the noise and immediately ran out of the gate of the academy. When he saw Li Zixuan riding a novel car and whizzing past, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets and his face was full of what the F*** CK. Li Tai curled his lips and replied, "This is an electric bike. It is Yamacho's latest modified bike. It uses a battery to power the motor. It converts chemical energy into electrical energy, and then the electrical energy into kinetic energy to drive the bike forward." Damn, Chinke, can you not make it so complicated? Just tell me, where did Yamacho get this bike from? Where can I get an identical bike? Chung Chumo was full of question marks. He waved his hand impatiently and said, he felt that Li Zexuan's electric bicycle was too cool. This was the kind of bicycle a man should ride. Sitting on it, one could feel the speed of the wind. It was much more comfortable than sitting on a galloping horse. Li Tai could not help but say, "Where did Yamacho get this bike? Do you still need to ask? It must be the workshop. In my opinion, you should stop thinking about it. There's only one electric bike in the whole Tang Dynasty. It will be your turn at least 2 months later." 2 months? Isn't that too cruel? No, I will borrow it from Yamacho tomorrow. It will be fun to ride it first. Ching Chumo immediately refused and said that he wanted to look for Li Zixuan. Huh, go ahead then. Li Tai shook his head disapprovingly. If it was in the past, Chung Chumo might have been able to borrow the bike from Li Zixuan. However, Mo Lingwei had a car accident in the afternoon. Li Zixuan would definitely not lend the electric bike to others so easily. This was for the safety of the bike, and more importantly, for the safety of the person. Sigh. Li Tai sighed and turned to leave. He also wanted to have an electric bike like this. A bike that did not require manpower and could run on its own was a must for lazy people. Yo, Marquis Yong, and is here. What bike is this? Yinshan Villas. Mo Huai was sending Yin Light off. Just now, they had discussed the wedding date of the two families' children. Yin Lai planned to ask the matchmaker to formally propose marriage when he returned. As soon as he walked out of Yinshan Villas, Yin Lai saw Li Zixuan riding an electric bike toward them. With his sharp eyes, he quickly noticed the uniqueness of the bike. He could not help but exclaim in surprise. Yin Lai shook his head. It was also his first time seeing the electric bike. Screech. Li Zixuan had excellent eyesight. Naturally, he also saw Yin Lai and Mo Huai at the intersection. The bike began to slow down when it was about to reach them. After a while, the electric bike stopped steadily in front of Yin Lai. Li Zixuan quickly got off the bike and cupped his hands. "Uncle Yin, you came to Yinshan Villas today? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have prepared a banquet for you." Yin Lai waved his hand and said, "You don't have to be so polite, Xiao Xian. I came to Yinshan Villas today because I have something to discuss with Mr. Mo." At this point, Yin Lai pointed at the electric bike beside Li Zixuan and said, "This bike of yours is very novel. I saw that you didn't pedal just now, but this bike can still move like it's flying. What's the principle behind it?" Yin Lai had been engaged in engineering machinery all his life, but this was the first time that he had seen such a machine that could move by itself without human or animal power. He was really curious about it. At this moment, Old Yin had completely forgotten that the city gate of Chang will be closed in a few minutes. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "Uncle Yin, this is the workshop's latest electric bike. First of all, this bike uses chain transmission and rear-wheel drive to make the bike structure more reasonable. Second, this bike is installed with a lead-acid battery and an electric motor. The battery provides power to the electric motor, causing the motor's rotor to rotate rapidly. Then, the electric motor drives the wheels to rotate together, so that it can move like it's flying without pedaling. Chapter 1441. Electric motor? Battery? These are all good stuff. Xiao Xian, who made these things? Yinshan Villa. After Li Zixuan briefly explained to Yin Lide how the electric bicycle, the electric motor, and the battery worked, Yin Lide could not help but ask in surprise. Li Zixuan glanced at Mo Huai before replying. Mr. Wang, Ink Girl, and Shouting were able to make the battery and electric motor so quickly. Without their recent hard work, how could there be such a magical electric bicycle? What? Shouting and Ink Girl contributed to the electric motor and battery? Yin Lide was shocked when he heard that. In the eyes of a father, his child would never grow up. However, when the father found out that his son had done something that even he could not do, the shock he would feel would be similar to Yin Lide's. Mo Huai, who was at the side, did not look too shocked. It was mainly because Mo Lingwei had always been at Yinhuang College. Mo Huai was also a teacher at Yinhuang College. He naturally knew more about his daughter's situation than Yin Lide. Li Zixuan nodded and said, Uncle Yin, Shouting has made considerable progress in both his theoretical foundation and his technical level. Don't underestimate him like before. Good, good, good. Yin Lide's face was filled with gratification as he said good 3 times. He had just discussed the marriage between his son and Mo Lingwei with Mo Huai. Now, he learned from Li Zixuan that his son had great capabilities. His son was about to complete the 2 most important things in a man's life. How could Yin Lide not be gratified? In-law, you've taught your son well. In the future, Shouting will definitely be able to inherit your mantle and bring the Yin family to greater heights. Mo Huai cupped his hands and smiled. In-law, Li Zixuan opened his mouth in surprise. He knew that Yin Lide must have something to do at Yinshan Villa today, but he never expected that old Yin would come directly to Mo Huai to discuss the marriage of his son and daughter. Wasn't this progress a little too fast? That was right. This old man came to Yinshan today to ask for this marriage for Shouting. This child and Ink Girl are in love with each other and have the same interests. But after all, there are differences between men and women. If they hang out together every day without any status, it will ruin Ink Girl's reputation. So as a father, I might as well help them get married. Seeing Li Zixuan's surprised expression, Yin Lide chuckled and explained. I see. Hearing this, Li Zixuan couldn't help but feel happy for his good friend. He cupped his hands and said, if Shouting knew about Uncle Yan's love and care for Shouting, he would definitely be grateful and filial to you. Sigh, as long as this brat doesn't blame me in his heart, it's fine. Yin Lide shook his head and patted Li Zixuan's shoulder. With a complicated expression, he sighed, Little Xian, you were right last time. This old man has indeed cared too little about Shouting. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be single even though he's not young anymore. When Li Zixuan heard this, he couldn't help but console. Uncle Yin, please don't think that way. Shouting didn't meet the fated person before, so he didn't get married. After all, marriage is a big event in a lifetime. He can't just casually find a girl to marry into the family, right? Yin Lide couldn't help but laugh. Little Xian, what you said makes sense. Please take care of Shouting in the future. Of course. Shouting is my brother. Li Zixuan replied firmly. Oh, in-law, it's already late. I reckon that the city gates of Chang and city are about to close. You definitely won't be able to rush back. In this old man's opinion, why don't you stay in Yinshan for the night and ride down the mountain tomorrow morning and rush to Chang and city for the morning assembly? At this moment, Mo Huai looked at the sky and said with shock. Yin Lide looked up and nodded. All right then, this old man will stay in the side courtyard today. When Yinhuang College was being built, Yin Shouting, as the chief engineer of the college, was directly allocated a side courtyard. Therefore, Yin Lide didn't have to worry about not having a place to stay on Yinshan. Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. He instantly remembered what Yin Shouting told him in the workshop earlier. Therefore, he quickly cupped his hands and said, Oh, right, Uncle Yin, there's something I forgot to tell you. Shouting accidentally fell down in the workshop today and suffered some minor injuries. He's recuperating in the workshop now, so he can't return to the side courtyard tonight. Fell down? Oomph. How old is this brat? How can he still fall down while walking? How worrisome. When Yin Lide heard this, he immediately snorted in dissatisfaction. However, Yin shouting was still his son. He then pretended to ask casually, "Little Xian, how's this brat's injury? Did a doctor treat him?" Seeing that Yin Lide was obviously not telling the truth, Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh. "Uncle Yin, don't worry. Dr. Sun has already treated Shouting. He said that Shouting's injury isn't serious. He just needs to rest for a few days to recover." "Oh, right, Mr. Mo. Ink Girl is still taking care of Shouting in the workshop. She might be back later. Don't worry." Yin Lide heard this and heaved a sigh of relief. Mo Huai, however, looked at Li Zishuan thoughtfully. After a moment of silence, he said, "Thank you, Yamacho, for telling me. This old man understands." It was 6:45 at night. Mo Lingwei returned to Yunshan's side courtyard under the escort of the workshop servant. However, she saw that there was still light in the house. She couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. She carefully pushed the door open and entered, only to find her father sitting in the front hall as if he was waiting for her to return. She couldn't help but ask, "Father, why are you here tonight?" Last year, because of the astronomical telescope, Mo Lingwei became a specially appointed professor of the academy and received a side courtyard in Yinshan. Logically speaking, Mo Huai could also stay in the side courtyard with Mo Lingwei. However, as the head of the Mo family, old Mo had his own pride. How could he stay in his daughter's house? Therefore, Mo Huai had always lived in Plum Village. Where Minister Yin came to Yinshan today, Mo Huai didn't answer Mo Lingwei's question. Instead, he said this out of the blue. Minister Yin, he came to Yinshan? Father, what is he here for?" Mo Lingwei was stunned. Her expression suddenly became uneasy. She felt guilty. After all, she had just injured Yin Lide's son during the day. Now that she heard that Yin Lide came to Yinshan, she subconsciously thought that he was here to settle the score with her. Mo Huai's gaze was like lightning. When he saw the trace of guilt that flashed across Mo Lingwei's face, his eyes flashed, and he instantly understood. After pausing for a moment, Mo Huai calmly replied, "Minister Yin came to Yinshan today to propose marriage to me." Hearing this, Mo Lingwei's eyes widened. Her face was filled with disbelief. But then, she said something extremely shocking. Father, you and Minister Yin, you are both men. How can you get married?" Mo Huai was stunned for a moment. When he finally reacted, he almost fell off his chair. He pointed angrily at Mo Lingwei and said angrily, Shut up. You have no respect for your elders. You even dare to joke about your father. This is outrageous. Minister Yin came to find me today to propose marriage on behalf of his son." Propose marriage on behalf of his son? When Mo Lingwei heard this, she finally reacted. Her beautiful face instantly became very interesting. There was agitation, excitement, and also shyness. "Father, I'm not marrying." Mo Lingwei's expression changed. When she saw the faint smile on Mo Huai's face, she couldn't help but stomp her feet and turn to go upstairs. Mo Huai naturally saw through her shyness. After Mo Lingwei left, Mo Huai suddenly raised his head. His deep eyes seemed to be able to pierce through the roof. He murmured, "I'm sorry, Mo Lingwei. Ma Ying, our daughter is about to get married. She chose her Mr. Right. If your spirit is in heaven, you should feel gratified, right?" The news that the Marquis of Yong and had created a car that didn't require manpower or animal power to travel, as if it was flying spread throughout the entire Lantian County by the next morning. After hearing the news, there were those who were shocked, those who were doubtful, and those who were cheering. There were even more people who were raising money to buy this kind of car. As for those who doubted the authenticity of the rumor, after Li Zishuan rode an electric bicycle to Lantian County this morning, all of the doubters shut up. Young Master is back. Young Master is back on a celestial car. Just as they arrived at the entrance of the Marquis's estate, Wang Bale, who had long since learned that Li Zixuan had built a new magical carriage, cheered loudly as he went up to greet Li Zixuan. Screech! Li Zixuan tightened his grip on the brakes, and the car stopped steadily in front of Wang Bale at the entrance of the Marquis's mansion. He joked, "You rascal! Aren't you afraid that the car won't be controlled and will knock you down?" Wang Bale replied cleverly, "Young master is benevolent, and his martial arts are invincible. How can he let this celestial car knock me down?" "Celestial car?" Li Zixuan was stunned. Then he smiled and said, "Looks like my car has already been named." Wang Bale nodded and replied, "Yes. Young master, the people who entered the city today were all talking about your car. They said that a car like this that doesn't need manpower or animal power to move like it's flying can only be made by the gods in heaven." So, word of mouth spread among the people, and they called your car a celestial car. As they spoke, Han Yushi, Li Jingma, Madame Li, and the others who had heard the news in the courtyard had already come out of the courtyard. "Xian you really made a celestial car?" Li Jingma pointed at the strange-looking electric bicycle beside Li Zixuan, his mouth agape in shock. Yi Guizhong couldn't stay calm either. After looking at the electric bicycle from top to bottom, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "This morning this old man heard that Xiaoxian, you build a magical bicycle that can move by itself. Could it be this?" Li Zixuan cupped his hands and replied, "Grandfather guessed right. This is a car that can move on its own." After another round of explanation, Li Zixuan explained the general principles of the electric bicycle to his family. Regardless of whether they understood or not, Li Zixuan pushed the bike straight to the backyard. However, a little tail inevitably followed behind him. Big brother, I want to ride this bike. Hurry up and teach me." "No, children can't ride this bike." "Nonsense. Mo Lingwei is an adult and knows some martial arts. Even she got into an accident while riding a bike. How could Li Zixuan let his sister ride an electric bicycle? Why? It's too dangerous. It's easy to fall. Lana, think about it. If you fall off this bike, you'll probably be disfigured and become ugly. Lana, do you still want to ride it?" "Oh, then I won't ride it. But big brother, you have to give me a ride." Okay. It's cool in the afternoon. Big brother will ride the bike and you can go out to play, okay?" Okay. After finally getting rid of the little girl's entanglement, Li Zixuan finally got the time to be alone with Han Yushi. "Wife, didn't I say that I wanted to give you a surprise a few days ago? What do you think? Do you like this electric bicycle?" This is the first and only electric bicycle in Tang Dynasty. In the backyard, Li Zixuan patted the electric bicycle and smiled at Han Yushi. Husband, you want to give this bike to me?" Han Yushi was stunned and was immediately surrounded by a huge surprise. Then, she waved her hands and said, No, husband, this thing is too expensive. I can't accept it. I'm satisfied that you have this intention." Li Zixuan couldn't help but frown and say, "Wife, what are you saying? You and I are husband and wife. What's mine is yours. It's just a bike. What's so expensive about it? Come and hold it. This bike is yours from now on." After that, Li Zixuan pretended to be angry and pushed the electric bicycle to Han Yushi's side. A trace of emotion flashed through Han Yushi's eyes. After pausing for a moment, she smiled sweetly and said, "Husband, as you said, we husband and wife are one. What's yours is mine, so why do we have to make such a clear distinction? Just leave this bike with husband, because husband is always busy and tired. He needs it more than I do. Besides, if I want to use it, I can just ask husband for it." Li Zixuan was touched and annoyed. He was touched that his wife was so considerate of him. He was annoyed that if he knew this, Li Zixuan wouldn't have praised the electric bicycle in front of Han Yushi. Now, Han Yushi wasn't willing to accept this gift. "Young master," Wang Jiu came and said that Master Zhang from the workshop brought a batch of armor to the mansion. "Do you want to take a look?" Right at this moment, Xiaoxi hurriedly ran over and said. As for Wang Jiu, he was the gatekeeper, Wang Bale. There were women in the backyard. Normal male servants couldn't enter, so Xiaoxi had to pass the message. "What? The armor is done? Look, of course, I have to see it for myself. This is the invincible armor in this world. When Li Zixuan heard this, he couldn't help but feel refreshed. He was abnormally excited. Chapter 1442. Da-da-da. In the morning of Chang and city, the streets were bustling with pedestrians. The peddlers were hawking their wares, the commoners were chatting and laughing with each other, the children were selling newspapers, as well as the sounds of reading coming from the Imperial College and the Hongwen Library. These various sounds formed the various states of life in Chang and city in the morning. But today, in Chang and city, there was a different sound mixed in. It was the sound of iron ingots hitting the bluestone road. It was crisp and cold, giving people a bone-chilling feeling. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and sucked in a breath of cold air. What they saw was a group of fully armed knights riding tall horses and marching in this direction with an awe-inspiring aura. The hooves of those war horses seemed to be tied with a lump of iron ingot, which led to the crisp sounds on the street. However, this was not the most important thing. The most daunting thing was that the knight leading the group was actually covered in iron armor. Other than his eyes, not a single part of his body was exposed. His head, neck, limbs, and hands and feet were all wrapped in iron armor. Even the war horse he was riding was covered in a set of shiny iron horse armor. From afar, this person looked like a knight cast directly from steel. Powerful, cold, ruthless. This was the most intuitive feeling that this iron knight gave to the commoners on the street. The commoners who were close to him even had a feeling of suffocation. Therefore, there was no need for someone to open the way. Wherever the Iron Knight went, the crowd would automatically disperse. This was a kind of deterrence that came from the soul. Towards the unknown, most people would subconsciously feel afraid, not to mention this kind of Iron Knight that made people tremble in fear. Da-da. This group of knights was still moving forward at a moderate pace. The previously bustling street immediately quieted down after this group passed by. Not far away, a group of martial marquis heard of the abnormality here and immediately rushed over. However, after seeing the soldier beside the Iron Knight, the leading martial marquis could not help but be startled. Then he waved his hand, and the martial marquis turned around and left. Seeing this, the surrounding commoners all sucked in a breath of cold air, thinking to themselves, where did this cavalry come from? For Wu Ho to immediately avoid them. Although they had doubts in their hearts, no one dared to ask at this time. After all, everyone was afraid of angering the Steel Knight. After the strange cavalry left, the commoners on the street couldn't help but discuss with each other. Oh my God, what was the background of that fully armored cavalryman? It looked too terrifying, just like the undead cavalry from the underworld. Tisk, Wang Lao Air, you're talking as if you've seen Hell's cavalry before. TSK. However, that man who is wearing steel armor from head to toe is indeed quite evil. Standing beside him, I feel like my feet are emitting cold air. That's right. That person was too terrifying. If I hadn't covered my third brother's mouth just now, I reckon that this brat would have been scared to the point of crying on the spot. How could there be someone in this world who would cover their entire body in metal armor? Won't it affect your walking? Yeah, this set of metal armor is at least 40 to 50 gene. Furthermore, with the four limbs wrapped in metal, it's inconvenient to move. That's not right. Just now I saw that the cavalry's hand holding the reins and the hand holding the lance, his movements were very nimble. Tisk, how is that possible? If that's the case, when this cavalry goes on the battlefield, wouldn't he be invincible and invincible? Huh, it's true. That person's entire body, other than his eyes, is completely covered in metal armor. Even the horse he's riding on is covered in horse armor. Who can break through his defense? Where did this cavalry come from? Why didn't the Wuho government stop them? I think I saw Yong and Marquis, subordinate Commander Pang. What? Zheng Laoqi, are you sure you didn't see wrongly? I shouldn't have seen wrongly. I've seen Commander Pang before. Tisk, doesn't that mean that this cavalry is Marquis? It can even be said that the person in the steel armor is Yong and Marquis. That might really be possible, but I don't know why Marquis brought troops to Chang'an City. Don't tell me Marquis wants to. Pa, want what? Want your head. Just based on those 10 over cavalry. How can they rebel? Besides, Yeoman Marquis is an upright and loyal person. He is even more loyal to his majesty. How can he do such a rebellious act? The commoners were all discussing the sudden appearance of the cavalry. At this moment, in the imperial court, the morning court was also bustling with activity. Up till now, the 100 over counties near the Yellow River Basin have constructed a total of 30,000 over miles of ditches and over 4,300 water wheels. The drought in the various counties has been alleviated and has not affected this year's planting. It is estimated that in another half a month, the commoners will be able to harvest the wheat. In Taiji Palace, Minister of Revenue Xiao Chua was reporting the drought situation to Li Er. Li Er, who was sitting at the head of the table, did not reveal any joy after hearing Xiao Chua's report. Because even though the drought in Guangzhou had been greatly alleviated and they would be able to harvest in another half a month, Li Er felt that the imperial court had spent so much effort. But in the end, it was very likely to be feeding the locusts. According to the prophecy that Li Zishuan left behind, the locust plague was about to arrive. Minister Xiao has worked hard. After a moment, Li Er recovered from his thoughts and nodded. Your Majesty. At this moment, Wei Zheng stepped forward and clasped his hands. I believe that the Marquis has contributed greatly to the Guangzhou drought being alleviated so quickly. If not for the water wheels that he designed, most of the fertile land in the Guangzhou region would still be in a drought state, not to mention the planting of rice and the summer harvest. Your Majesty has always been one to reward meritorious deeds and punish wrongdoings. So I believe that the Marquis who created the water wheels and gave the blueprint to the imperial court should be rewarded. Reward. And it wasn't for his own reward. When the officials heard this, they could not help but look strangely at Wei Zheng, thinking to themselves, since when would the dignified Wei Xuanqing help others to ask for a reward? Did the sun rise from the west today? Cheng Yaojin looked at Wei Zheng's back with a face full of smiles, thinking to himself, why is this old Wei more and more pleasing to the eye? But no matter what other people thought, Wei Zheng himself did not have any selfish motives. The reason why he wanted to help Li Zishuan ask for a reward was mainly because Li Zishuan had said by the Ba River, living high in the imperial court, one worries about the people. Living far away in a martial world, one worries about the ruler. He felt that Li Zishuan was a very good junior and was worth supporting. Li Er also looked at Wei Zheng curiously and then said lightly, Minister Wei, you don't have to worry about this matter. This time, Li Zishuan has contributed greatly to the drought, so I've already rewarded him in private. Wei Zheng frowned and subconsciously thought that Li Er was deliberately patronizing him. So he cupped his hands and said, May I ask how your Majesty rewarded him? No matter how good Li Er's temper was, he could not help but feel angry at this time. He frowned and said unhappily, Minister Wei, are you doubting me? Even a fool could hear the coldness in his words, but Wei Zheng, who was used to big scenes, was not afraid. This old official does not dare. Wei Zheng cupped his hands and said, although he said that he did not dare, even a fool could see that he did not mean what he said. Li Er pointed at Wei Zheng and wanted to fly into a rage, but at this moment, a Jinwu guard walked in and cupped his fists. Reporting to your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and requests an audience. Li Er could not help but laugh and said, Quickly, let Minister Wei face to face, and see if I have rewarded the Marquis of Yongin. After saying that, he looked indifferently at Wei Zheng in the hall, but who knew that the Jinwu guard did not accept the order, but hesitated and said, Your Majesty, please bring the troops, armor, and horse into the hall. He says that he wants to give your Majesty a surprise. The moment these words were said, the entire hall was shocked. The civil and military officials, eunuchs, and palace maids were all stunned. Even Li Er could not help but be stunned. Ever since Qin Shi Huang held the morning court, there had never been an official wearing armor, holding weapons, and riding a war horse to the morning court. This was disrespect to the emperor, treason, absurd, nonsense. Wei Zheng was the first to reprimand. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and is unscrupulous and has no respect for the Emperor. This old official requests Your Majesty to punish the Marquis of Yong, and for disrupting the court and disrespecting the Emperor. At this time, Lier had already recovered from his shock and could not help but laugh. Minister Wei, you were the one who asked for a reward for the Marquis of Yong, and now you are also the one asking for a punishment for the Marquis of Yong's crimes. You keep going back and forth. What should we do? Wei Zheng straightened his neck and insisted with a proud face, Your Majesty, these are two completely different matters. This old official also said earlier that Your Majesty has always been clear about rewards and punishments. The Marquis of Yong, and should naturally be rewarded for his meritorious deeds and punished for his wrongdoings. Lier nodded and said in a low voice, Good. What a good reward for meritorious deeds and punishment for wrongdoings. Men, immediately summon the Marquis of Yong, and let all the civil and military officials in the court judge whether the Marquis of Yong in meritorious deeds or wrongdoings today. Your Majesty, you must not. In the court, how can there be an official carrying armor and riding a horse to the palace? Wei Zheng was shocked and hurriedly said. Lier waved his hand and said, We have already made up our mind. Whether it is meritorious deeds or wrongdoings, after the Marquis of Yong and enters the palace, everyone can judge then. Wei Zheng was helpless and could only retreat. His heart was filled with questions. He did not understand why Li Zishuan would do such a disrespectful thing to ruin his future when he clearly had a bright future ahead of him. Second brother, this little Xian will be fine, right? Cheng Yaojin had an anxious face as he asked Qin Xiong softly. Qin Xiong shook his head and said, Jijia, don't be impatient. Look at the situation first. It might not be a bad thing. Seeing this, Cheng Yaojin could only calm down and quietly wait for Li Zishuan to enter the palace. Among the civil officials, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, and the rest were all silent, making it impossible to know what they were thinking in their hearts. Da-da-da. Not long later, a series of crisp da-da sounds came from outside the palace. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound and saw a knight dressed in silver full-body armor, holding a cold lance in his hand, riding a warhorse wrapped in horse armor, and slowly walking into the palace. Bang, bang, bang. Facing such an awe-inspiring yet strange cavalry, many of the civil officials retreated a few steps in fright. And in the military officials' camp, many of the generals' eyes lit up when they saw the steel cavalry. It was like the light in a wolf's eyes when it saw its prey. Bang! Arriving in front of the officials, the steel cavalry nimbly jumped down from the horse and fastened the lance to the saddle. He cupped his fists towards Li Zishuan and said, This subject Li Zishuan greets Your Majesty. Today, I brought the armor and warhorse to court mainly for a reason. I hope Your Majesty can forgive me. Everyone was stunned at this moment. They weren't shocked by Li Zishuan's words, but by the fact that Li Zishuan had dismounted from his horse and cupped his fists in one smooth motion, without the slightest hesitation. This caused the civil and military officials, especially the generals, to almost cry out in shock. Lier was also an expert in military formations, so how could he not see Li Zishuan's extraordinary armor? He waved his hand and said, Marquis Yong, there's no need to be so polite. What kind of armor are you wearing? Lier asked even though he already knew the answer. A few days ago, Li Zishuan had told him about the new armor. Now that he asked again, he was mainly asking on behalf of the civil and military officials. Li Zishuan also roughly understood Lier's meaning. He cupped his fists and replied, Your Majesty, this subject is wearing the latest vanadium steel plate armor made by the workshop. This armor is not only lighter than the radiant armor, its defensive power and defensive range are also far superior to the radiant armor. This plate armor can withstand all kinds of damage from swords and arrows. Together with the armored warhorse, a cavalry like this can rampage on the battlefield, sweeping everything in their path. Plate armor. After hearing Li Zishuan's introduction, The faces of the officials in the hall changed as they whispered among themselves. What? This plate armor is actually lighter than the radiant armor? How is this possible? That's right. This plate armor clearly covers the entire body, while the radiant armor only protects the key areas. How can the plate armor be lighter than the radiant armor? But this plate armor truly is very nimble. Just now, the Marquis of Yong and jumped down from his horse. This means that the plate armor doesn't affect his normal movements. Just this point alone is already very powerful. After all, it can protect all parts of the body, making it impervious to swords and arrows on the battlefield. It's an invincible existence. If this plate armor can be fully equipped in the army, why should our great Tang fear the Turks? That's right, that's right. A plate-armored cavalry like this is completely capable of wiping out the Turks. As the officials were discussing, Duan Jishuan stepped forward and cupped his fists. Your Majesty, this subject would like to boldly test out the defensive capabilities of this radiant armor. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall immediately fell silent. The civil and military officials all looked at Li Er in unison. After a few moments of thought, Li Er nodded and said, "Permitted." Chapter 1443. Marquis Yong'an, are you willing to let this old man try? Inside Taiji Palace, Duan Jishuan turned to Li Zishuan and asked. Li Zishuan, whose entire face was hidden behind the visor, nodded without any hesitation. General Duan, if you want to try it, then go ahead. The purpose of this plate armor is to be used in the army in the future. If we don't test it in advance, then won't we be harming innocent soldiers on the battlefield in the future? Good. Marquis Yong is wise. Duan Jishuan looked at Li Zishuan with praise. He didn't have any ill feelings towards Li Zishuan. In addition, Li Zishuan had invented the telegraph to resolve the crisis in Guan City, allowing the reinforcements to rush to the aid of the Black Armored Army. No matter what, Duan Jishuan owed Li Zishuan a favor in this battle. A few days ago, Duan Jishuan, who was busy with the expansion of the Black Armored Army, received news from Li Er that after the expansion, Li Zishuan's workshop would be responsible for all the equipment. As a commander of the Black Armored Army, Duan Jishuan was only in charge of leading the troops. Even if he had any objections to the logistics arrangements made by Li Er, he would not voice them out. Now that he had finally seen Li Zishuan forge armor for the Black Armored troops, how could Duan Jishuan hold himself back? He wanted to test the toughness of this new armor on the spot. Thus, he turned to Li Er and cupped his fists. Your Majesty, please grant me a sword. Although the Tang people revered martial arts, regardless of whether they knew martial arts or not, they would usually carry a sword when they went out. However, they were in the morning court, and everyone had a hand over their weapons before entering Taiji Palace. Duan Jishuan was no exception. Li Er thought for a moment, then pointed at the guard who had brought Li Zishuan into the palace and ordered, He Shanwu, give the sword at your waist to Minister Duan. Li Zishuan wanted to give the Emperor's sword to Duan Jishuan as an experiment, but he remembered that the Emperor's sword was forged by Zhang Yujio and was extremely sharp. If Duan Jishuan used the Emperor's sword to pierce through the armor and injure Li Zishuan, that would be bad. The current Great Tang could no longer do without Li Zishuan. Here, how could the guard in front of the palace dare to disagree? He quickly took off the sword from his waist and handed it over to Duan Jishuan. Duan Jishuan took the sword. At this time, Li Zishuan said, This plate armor is mainly used for cavalry. Only in a battle between cavalry can its superiority be shown. If General Duan is willing, how about we go out and fight? Good. This is what you wish for. I dare not ask you. That was what Duan Jishuan was thinking, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Now that he heard Li Zishuan mention it, he couldn't help but have a good impression of Li Zishuan. Yes, good. Since that's the case, then please follow me to the drill grounds to watch the battle between official Duan and the Marquis of Yong'an. Hearing this, Li Er quickly went with the flow. The officials in the hall naturally had no objections to Li Er's words. Furthermore, the new plate armor that Li Zishuan had brought today had piqued their curiosity. To be able to watch a battle between a veteran and a new soldier no one would be unwilling. A few moments later, Li Er led the officials to the drill ground on the northern side of the imperial city. This was the drill ground of the imperial army, and the choice of this place showed just how important this competition was to Li Er. At this time, Duan Jishuan was already wearing a Mingguang armor. He held a sharp sword in his hand and rode on a war horse covered in armor. He was facing off against Li Zishuan with an imposing aura. This was basically a battle between an old cavalry and a new cavalry. Duan Jishuan represented the best cavalry in the world in terms of equipment and battle prowess. Li Zishuan relied on the new armor to become a new cavalry. Whether or not he could defeat Duan Jishuan, the legend of the strongest cavalry, would depend on the following battle. Marquis of Yong, and for the sake of fairness, the two of us are not allowed to use internal energy in the following battle. How about we just compete with our moves? Before the battle began, Duan Jishuan suddenly said. The reason why he said this was, of course, to take care of Li Zishuan, this martial arts junior. Although Li Zishuan was now also in the Grandmaster realm, Duan Jichuan believed that he was also a veteran Grandmaster. Even if they were in the same realm, he could crush Li Zishuan with his advantage of experience. That was why he made this suggestion. However, Duan Jishuan did not know that Li Zishuan was now completely different from him in terms of realm. Especially a few days ago, Li Zishuan had an epiphany at the foot of the Cloud Mountain and touched the threshold of the Grandmaster late stage. Now, his strength was already above Duan Jishuan's. Li Zishuan heard this and did not refuse. He smiled and nodded. "Thank you for your kindness, General Duan." Without using internal energy, just using real swords and spears to compete with each other was more in line with the scene of cavalry charging on the battlefield. It was also better to test the effectiveness of plate armor on the battlefield. After his voice fell, Li Zishuan made a gesture, indicating that Duan Jishuan could start the attack. Hiya! Seeing this, Duan Jishuan's eyes flashed. He raised the long sword in his hand and then urged the war horse under him. One man and one sword rushed toward Li Zishuan with an unstoppable force. Fast! From a moment Duan Jishuan urged the war horse to the moment he rushed to within 30 feet of Li Zishuan, it was only the blink of an eye. Many officials on the sidelines, especially the civil officials, did not even have time to react. Duan Jishuan's long sword was about to touch Li Zishuan's neck. When killing an enemy on the battlefield, naturally, one had to directly attack the enemy's most vulnerable part. Cutting the throat with a sword was also the simplest and most effective way to kill the enemy. As a commander of the most elite cavalry in the world, Duan Jishuan's kung fu was indeed invincible in the world. Some of the generals could not help but secretly cheer for Duan Jishuan in their hearts. However, Li Zishuan's next reaction surprised everyone. He did not dodge, but directly used the lance in his hand to stab Duan Jishuan's neck. Blood for blood, a life for a life. No one had expected such a desperate fight to the death before the start of the competition. Clang! TSK. Not only did others not expect it, but Duan Jishuan, as one of the parties involved, also did not expect Li Zishuan to use such a method. When he saw Li Zishuan's lance coming toward him, Duan Jishuan quickly adjusted his position on the horse. His entire upper body was slightly tilted back, and Li Zishuan's lance was close to the bridge of his nose and stabbed behind him. After dodging, his sword that was originally going to stab Li Zishuan's neck could only be lightly brushed by Li Zishuan's neck, making a tisk sound. However, this brushing sword did not leave a single mark on Li Zishuan's neck. It was truly inconceivable. Just think about it. If the two of them had not dodged when Duan Jishuan and Li Zishuan had fought to the death, the final outcome would have been Li Zishuan's life and Duan Jishuan's death. This was the key to the strong defense brought by the plate armor. Duan Jishuan's attack did not succeed, so he quickly turned his horse around and slashed at Li Zishuan again. As a general who had fought on horseback for more than 10 years, Duan Jishuan's equestrian skills were naturally much better than Li Zishuan's. Before Li Zishuan had finished turning around, Duan Jishuan's incomparably sharp sword had already slashed at Li Zishuan's back. Clang! Li Zixuan, who was turning around, saw Duan Zixuan's movements from the corner of his eye. After hearing a whistling sound from behind him, Li Zixuan did not panic. Instead, he calmly shrugged his right shoulder and straightforwardly sent his right shoulder under Duan Zixuan's blade. Clang! The loud sound of metal clashing came from the drill ground. Lier and the civil and military officials were all stunned. Who in the world would dare to use their shoulder to block a sword like Li Zixuan? But this was not the end. At this moment, Li Zixuan borrowed the force of Duan Zixuan's slash to support himself with one hand on the horse's back and actually completed a beautiful turn. Immediately after, while Duan Zixuan was still shocked by the abnormal defense of the plate armor, Li Zixuan used the sharp vanadium steel horse lance in his hand to fiercely sweep the longsword in Duan Zixuan's hand. Kacha! In front of the sharpness of the vanadium steel horse lance, the fine steel sword actually had no resistance and was instantly broken. At this moment, Li Zixuan's big white had already turned its horse around. Li Zixuan then changed direction on the horse's back and looked at Duan Zixuan. General Duan, you've lost. You've lost. On the battlefield, when a soldier's sword was seized or broken, it was basically a declaration of defeat for the soldier. Silence. The drill ground suddenly became quiet. No one had expected Duan Zixuan to lose in this competition, and no one had expected Duan Zixuan to lose so quickly. But with such a result, everyone could only sigh in admiration at Li Zixuan's equipment. This was because in the entire competition, Li Zixuan had completely relied on the almost invincible defense of the plate armor and the invincible attack of the vanadium steel horse lance to defeat Duan Zixuan. In terms of horsemanship, Li Zixuan was far inferior to Duan Zixuan. In terms of strength, everyone also thought that Li Zixuan was inferior to Duan Zixuan. Good armor, good horse lance. This old man concedes defeat. Duan Zixuan was stunned when he heard this, but he was not upset by his own failure. Instead, he was excited and happy. This was because the better Li Zixuan's equipment was, the more powerful the black armored troops would be in the future. Back then, Li Zixuan was able to lead 3,000 black armored troops to destroy Wang Shicheng. Now, Duan Zixuan felt that if his 5,000 black armored troops could all be equipped like Li Zixuan, he could directly lead them into the lair of the Turks. In any case, you can't break through my defenses, and I can break through your defenses whenever I want. This sort of battle, where there was a severe disparity in strength, was simply maddening. Duan Zixuan was already looking forward to beating the Turkic cavalry into a frenzy and grinding them into the ground. Your Majesty, this old subject earnestly requests that the weapons, plate armor, and horse armor made by the Marquis of Yong be used in the black armored troops. Duan Zixuan looked deeply at Li Zixuan and clasped his hands together. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Granted, my beloved officials. Please return to the main hall for the morning assembly." "Yes, Your Majesty." Under Li Zixuan's lead, the officials returned to Taiji Palace, and the morning assembly continued. At this moment, Li Zixuan had already removed his visor. The reason why he didn't remove the plate armor completely was because not only was it troublesome to put it on, it was also troublesome to remove it. The various straps on his body had to be removed one by one, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to do it alone in a short period of time. Thus, he could only remove his visor and stand in Taiji Palace for the morning assembly. It was just that it was strange for him to stand in front of the officials in such an attire. What do my beloved officials think of the plate armor and lance presented by the Marquis of Yong today? In the morning assembly, Li Zixuan asked calmly. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but recall the duel on the training ground. Cheng Yaojin couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart, and he was the first to step forward and laugh heartily. "Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that the plate armor and lance are very good. First of all, the plate armor can't be pierced by ordinary swords and sabers. It's like wearing a tortoise shell, and no one can hurt you on the battlefield. With this plate armor, our soldiers will die a lot less in the future. Moreover, this lance is too powerful. If we charge into the enemy's formation with this thing and chop the enemy's spears and swords into pieces, how will they fight back then? At that time, who will be a match for us? Thus, Your Majesty, on behalf of the soldiers of the left guard, I also ask Your Majesty for a batch of such armor and lance." When Cheng Yaojin finished speaking, Li Zixuan's face turned green. What did he mean by wearing the plate armor was like wearing a tortoise shell? Wasn't this King cursing him in a roundabout way? When did old Cheng become so immoral? Not only was this fellow immoral, he actually wanted equipment for the tens of thousands of soldiers of the left guard. Li Zixuan couldn't help but curse inwardly. "Old Cheng, you're really thinking too much. Your Majesty, you mustn't." At this moment, Xiao Yu stepped out from the crowd and cupped his hands towards Li Zixuan. "Your Majesty, although the plate armor's defensive power is better than the Mingguang armor, it must consume a lot of steel to make, right? If Your Majesty is like the black armored army and only uses a small amount of it in the army, it may be possible because the money in the national treasury can still meet Your Majesty's needs. However, Your Majesty is doing things according to Lu Gong's wishes and using the so-called printing of all the plate armor. I'm afraid you'll have to empty the treasury of Chang and City. It's quite militaristic. I hope Your Majesty will reconsider." At this moment, Li Jing also stepped forward and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, the plate armor made by the Marquis of Yong and can not only protect the whole body, it also doesn't affect the body's flexibility. These are 2 points that the Mingguang armor can't compare to. In addition, the lance of the Marquis of Yong and is far sharper than ordinary weapons. If such technology can be used in the army, it will be a blessing for the Tang Empire. However, Your Majesty must also control your actions. You must not use it all to enter the treasury and use it all to forge weapons." Chapter 1444. I know what you are all worried about. I am not a cruel and merciless ruler. Even though the plate armor and vanadium steel horse lances are good, I will only equip them for the black armored army. Furthermore, the Marquis of Yong and is willing to provide all the equipment for the black armored army with his own strength. In the Taiji Palace, Li Er saw Li Jing, Xiao Yu, and the other important officials step forward to persuade him. He couldn't help but smile. The moment he said those words, all of the officials turned to look at Li Zixuan. The armor and equipment of thousands of cavalrymen were all on a single person. No matter how one looked at it, the amount of metal required to make these armor and equipment was at least 200,000 jin. In the entire Great Tang, there were no more than 3 people who could take out so much metal. Coincidentally, Li Zixuan was one of them. Besides excluding the cost of steel, the cost of labor was definitely not a small sum. This was especially so for the plate armor and vanadium steel horse lances. The cost of labor and equipment needed to manufacture a few thousand sets of armor would definitely be an astronomical figure. Li Zixuan was willing to provide so much manpower, resources, and wealth for the black armored army. How could they not be shocked? If Li Er had said it to anyone else, the officials would have probably cursed the other party without hesitation. However, since Li Er said it was Li Zixuan, the officials had no choice but to believe him, because Li Zixuan did have the financial resources and the new workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion did have the ability to do so. However, they couldn't understand why Li Zixuan was willing to pay such a huge price to provide the black armored army with equipment for free. Under the gazes of the crowd, Li Zixuan stepped forward and clasped his hands. The rise and fall of the country is the responsibility of every man. As the Marquis of Great Tang, I naturally have to share your burdens. In the current world, Great Tang's strength is unparalleled. However, the Turks in the north are still like a pack of ferocious wolves, eyeing Great Tang's territory. This official's honor and disgrace are all bestowed upon me by your majesty. All of this official's wealth comes from Great Tang. When the country is in danger, let alone these several thousand sets of armor, even if you ask this subject to use all of his wealth to support the Great Tang army, this subject will not object. Only with a country can one have a home. If the Great Tang cannot defeat the Turks, what is the use of this subject's wealth? Li Zishuan's speech was impassioned and powerful. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell silent. All the officials looked at Li Zishuan with admiration, excitement, and respect. The people of Great Tang were prideful. This was an era in which the honor of a nation was unprecedented. Today, Li Zishuan's speech had caused many people in the court to be overwhelmed with emotion. Li Zishuan's image in the eyes of all the officials instantly soared. Ever since Great Tang pacified the north and defeated the Turks to rescue Liang Shidu last month, the entire Great Tang seemed to have entered a state of preparation for war. This was especially so for the officials of the court. Everyone knew that a fierce battle would soon break out between Great Tang and the Turks. At this critical juncture, Li Zishuan had offered the peerless armor and divine weapons. Furthermore, he had taken the initiative to provide the equipment for Great Tang's trump card cavalry, the Black Armored Army. This not only inspired the officials, but also made them feel deep admiration for Li Zishuan, the Marquis of Yong, and serves the country wholeheartedly. This old man admires you for your righteousness. Wei Zheng, who had been clamoring to impeach Li Zishuan an hour ago, was the first to jump out. He first clasped his hands to Li Zishuan in admiration, and then he bowed to Lier. Your Majesty, the rise and fall of the realm is the responsibility of every man. The words of the Marquis of Yong and have deeply moved this old subject. This subject has decided that, starting from today, as long as the Great Tang does not destroy the Turks, this subject will not receive a salary. This subject is willing to use all of his salary in the future to forge weapons and armor for the soldiers of Great Tang. In Wei Zheng's view, if Li Zishuan, a rising official of the court, was willing to do so much for the Great Tang, then how could he, an old official of the empire, remain indifferent at a time like this? With the country and people at stake, Wei Zheng could also act like Li Zishuan and not care about personal gains and losses. Imperial Father, this son is willing to take out half of the Eastern Palace's allowance each month to buy weapons and armor for the soldiers of the Great Tang. Li Chengxian, who had been standing below Lier, stepped forward and clasped his hands. As the heir to the throne of the Great Tang, his words had an extraordinary meaning. Your Majesty, this subject is also willing to cut his own salary to support the Great Tang in the war against the Turks. At this moment, Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui stepped forward and clasped their hands towards Lier. This old subject is also willing to cut his own salary and give all of the iron mines of the Zhongsun family to the Marquis of Yong, and for free to forge divine weapons and destroy the Turks. Zhongsun Wuji stepped forward and said, speaking of which, Zhongsun Wuji was truly the pride of the entire clan. It was all related to the Great Tang and the royal family. He was a relative of the royal family. His sister was the empress of the Great Tang, and his nephew was the current heir to the throne of the Great Tang, the future emperor of the Great Tang. Thus, when it came to donating money, Zhongsun Wuji didn't hesitate at all. The only thing that made him a little depressed was that the first to jump out to donate money was Li Zishuan. At most, he was just adding flowers to the brocade, not providing charcoal in snowy weather. Be it adding flowers to the brocade or providing charcoal in snowy weather, at such a crucial moment, no one dared to drop the ball. At this moment, all of the officials and generals in the court bowed and said, this subject is also willing to cut his own salary to help the Great Tang forge divine weapons and destroy the Turks. Seeing that a good morning court assembly was about to turn into a donation gathering, Lier was touched. At the same time, he hurriedly waved his hands and said, my dear subjects, I appreciate your patriotism. However, the imperial court isn't in such a difficult situation that I have to rely on the salaries of all of you to survive. Thus, don't mention about cutting your salary. All of you only need to do your duty well, and the Great Tang will definitely grow stronger and defeat the Turks. Benefiting from the rapid development of maritime trade in the south, the Great Tang's current financial situation was still very healthy. At the very least, they didn't lack money or rations. Thus, Li Er didn't have any intention of cutting his own official salaries. Hearing this, the officials hesitated for a moment before clasping their hands and saying in unison, "This subject will do our best to assist your majesty to create a prosperous era and defeat the enemies of the universe." Li Er was overjoyed and said with a smile, "Good. Let us work together to create a prosperous era. What is there to fear about the mere Turks? Your Majesty is wise." The civil and military officials shouted in unison. At this moment, Li Zishuan stepped forward and clasped his hands. "Your Majesty, other than plate armor and vanadium steel horse lance, this subject will also present vanadium steel horse armor and horseshoes." Li Er frowned and said, "This vanadium steel horse armor, we have seen it just now. It is indeed very useful for cavalry to charge. But what is this horseshoes? Why didn't we see it just now?" Li Zishuan was about to explain, but Duan Zishuan beat him to it and said, "Your Majesty, this subject guesses that the horseshoes mentioned by the Marquis of Yong and should be something that is wrapped around the hooves of horses. Just now, when this subject was fighting with the Marquis of Yong, and I noticed that the hooves of his war horse seemed to be wrapped with some sort of metal. I think that it should be the horseshoes that the Marquis of Yong was talking about." As the commander of the Black Armored Army, Duan Zishuan's observation of horses was undoubtedly more meticulous. Thus, he was able to notice such an inconspicuous detail. Li Zishuan nodded and said, "General Duan has good eyesight. The horse that I was riding just now did indeed have metal wrapped around its hooves." Saying so, he clasped his hands to Li Er and said, "Your Majesty, in this subject's view, people need to wear shoes, and horses also need to wear shoes. When a horse wears shoes made of metal, not only will it not affect its running, it will also greatly reduce the wear and tear of the horse's hooves. Every year, tens of thousands of horses in my great Tang will be abandoned due to the wear and tear of their hooves. If all the horses are nailed with horseshoes, this subject dares to guarantee that the average lifespan of the horses will be extended by at least 2 years." With these words, the officials were once again shaken, and they couldn't help but discuss in private. A moment later, Xiao Yu stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, if the Marquis of Yong'an's words are true, then this subject suggests that we immediately implement horseshoes in the army. Every year, tens of thousands of war horses are eliminated due to the wear and tear of their hooves, and this is especially true for the war horses on the front lines. If horseshoes can really protect the hooves of the horses, it will save the Great Tang countless amounts of money every year. At the very least, we can save 20% of our military expenditure." As the butler of the Great Tang, Xiao Yu helped Li Er manage the country's purse. He knew better than anyone else just how much of the annual expenditure of the imperial court on the military was used to purchase war horses. Thus, when he heard Li Zishuan introduce the use of horseshoes, Xiao Yu was more excited than anyone else. Military expenditure will be reduced by 20%. Hearing these words, not only did many of the officials in the imperial court reveal expressions of shock, even Li Er, who was seated at the head of the table, could not remain calm. Old Li straightened his body and looked at Li Zishuan, asking, "Marquis of Eternal Peace, are you certain that not only will this horseshoe not harm the horseshoe, it will instead protect the horseshoe?" Li Zishuan clasped his hands and said, "This subject is extremely certain. Big White, which this subject was riding just now, is a living example. If your Majesty doesn't believe me, you can have someone bring Big White in. At that time, whether or not the horseshoes will harm the hooves, everyone will know with a single look." Li Er also wanted to take a closer look at how the horseshoes looked like. Hearing this, he nodded and said, "Permitted." A eunuch went out to help Li Zishuan lead the horse. After a while, Big White finally stood on the imperial court. 4 strong men came from the side and wanted to work together to overturn Big White. However, they were stopped by Li Zishuan with a wave of his hand. Li Zishuan stroked the tuft of hair beside Big White's neck and whispered something into Big White's ear, following which a miraculous scene appeared. Big White snorted and rubbed its head against Li Zishuan's arm. Then Big White bent its legs and sat on the ground, following which it nimbly flipped over and lay on its back with its four hooves facing the sky. Big White understood human nature. This was already discovered by Li Zishuan when he exterminated the group of mountain bandits at Mount Baimeng last year. After that, he often trained Big White intentionally or unintentionally and cultivated the tacit understanding between them. Thus this scene appeared. Everyone in the imperial court, including Li Er, was stunned. At this moment, Li Zishuan said, "Your Majesty and all the ministers, please take a look. Is there a horseshoe nailed to the horse's hooves?" Wei Zheng, Xiao Yu, Duan Jishuan, Cheng Yaojin, Zhang Senwuji, and a dozen other important ministers took the lead to take a look. After looking, Duan Jishuan couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder and said, "There is indeed a shoe made of steel nailed to the horse's hooves. However, in the battle with me, just now, this horse's hooves were quite nimble and there were no signs of injury at all. Truly miraculous." That's right. Why didn't I, old Cheng, think of nailing a piece of metal to the horse's hooves in the past? This toy is good. However, little Xian, I, old Cheng, am more interested in your horse riding skills just now. If you have time, you must teach this old man. Cheng Yaojin laughed loudly and said. Li Zishuan replied, "Uncle Cheng, this horse riding skill is just a small trick. As long as one is familiar with the horse, anyone can do what this nephew did just now." Cheng Yaojin naturally didn't believe it. However, before he could say anything, Li Er, who was sitting on the dragon throne, had already walked down. After looking at Big White's hooves for a while, he said, "These horseshoes are indeed good stuff. However, with a piece of metal embedded in the hooves, does the horse really not feel any pain?" Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, actually, the dark outer layer of the horse's hooves is a very thick layer of hard cuticle. There are no blood vessels in it, just like a human's fingernail. Therefore, when a horseshoe is nailed, the horse doesn't feel any pain at all. Under normal circumstances, if a horse gallops for too long, or if the road is too bumpy, it will cause the hard cuticle on the horse's hooves to be quickly worn away and split open. This way, the horse will become lame and unable to walk. This is why this subject wants to wear shoes for Big White to reduce the wear and tear on its hooves." Li Er roughly understood Li Zishuan's meaning and said in realization, "So that's how it is." Then, Li Er returned to the dragon throne. He looked at the officials in the hall and pondered for a moment before saying, "Beloved official Yin, hear the decree." Yin stepped forward and cupped his hands. "This subject receives the decree." Li Er said in a deep voice, "Order the Ministry of Works to immediately rush out a batch of horseshoes. From now on, all the war horses on the Tang Empire's front lines must be nailed with horseshoes." Yin bowed and said, "This subject receives the decree." Li Er nodded and then looked at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan was delighted. "Is old Li going to reward me?" Li Er didn't know what Li Zishuan was thinking. He said expressionlessly, "Marquis Yong'an, come forward and hear the decree. This subject, Li Zishuan, hears the decree." Li Zishuan cupped his hands in anticipation. Unexpectedly, Li Er said, "Marquis Yong, and has contributed plate armor, vanadium steel horse lance, vanadium steel horse armor, and horseshoes. You have contributed greatly. In view of your knowledge of military affairs, I hereby appoint you as the Black Armored Army's registrar. You will assist Duan Jishuan in quickly replacing the Black Armored Army's equipment. You will also incorporate the new equipment and come up with new training methods and battle tactics." "What? You want me to become a registrar in the Black Armored Army?" Hearing this, Li Zishuan was instantly dumbfounded. Not only was he stunned, but so were all the officials in the imperial court. After all, Li Zishuan had always been a civil official. After entering the imperial court, Li Zishuan's resume had been from the Imperial College's doctorate to the Yinhuang College's Yamacho to the Crown Prince Zhan Shi to the Crown Prince's junior guardian to the Marquis of Yong. He had started his career as a civil official. But now, Li Er had appointed Li Zishuan as the registrar. Wasn't this branding? "Your Majesty, this subject feels that this is inappropriate." Before Li Zishuan could voice his objection, Wei Zheng had already started to scold him. He had spoken. Chapter 1445. Beloved official Wei, is there anything wrong with my conferment? In the suite du hall, Wei Zheng jumped out to oppose Li Zixuan the moment Li Er announced his decision to confer the title to Li Zixuan. This made old Li extremely displeased, and at the same time, furious. After all, this was a decision he had made after careful consideration. It was undeniable that Li Zixuan's talent in engineering was unparalleled. Furthermore, during his time as the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, he had been extremely diligent. However, on the other hand, Li Zixuan's attainments in martial arts and military affairs weren't lacking either. Firstly, his martial arts realm had surpassed all of his peers, and even the majority of the older generation couldn't compare to him. Secondly, the invention of plate armor, vanadium steel horse lance, vanadium steel horse armor, and horseshoes, as well as his suggestion to attack Liang Shidu, all of these showed that Li Zixuan was talented in military strategy. He was a good seedling. Apart from that, Li Er felt that a martial arts expert who was well-versed in engineering was someone who was born for war. After quelling the rebellion in the city in the third month, Li Er had a deep understanding of the importance of engineering in war. The Turks were powerful, and they had millions of soldiers who could control their bowstrings. If they could use the most advanced engineering in war, Li Er felt that Great Tang's chances of victory would be even greater. Li Zixuan was the perfect combination of engineering and military affairs. This was why Li Er decided to appoint Li Zixuan as the military secretary. He wanted to see what kind of different sparks could be created from the clash between engineering and military affairs. It had to be said that Li Er's mind was open enough and his ideas were bold enough. He did not see new things as different. Instead, he thought about how to make use of new things. If it was any other emperor, they probably would not have such a tolerant heart. Facing Li Er's questioning, Wei Zheng wasn't afraid at all. He clasped his hands and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, this old subject doesn't deny that the Marquis of Yong and his outstanding literary talent and vast knowledge. Thus, even though he was appointed as the junior guardian of the Crown Prince at such a young age, this old subject didn't have any objections. But the military would determine the rise and fall of the Great Tang. The Marquis of Yong and was skilled in civil affairs. So how could he be so rashly sent into the army? The consequences would be unimaginable if we were to delay the war." Once these words were spoken, everyone fell silent. Li Zixuan, who was standing beside Wei Zheng, couldn't help but frown. Although Li Zixuan had never thought of joining the army before, Wei Zheng had made him sound so unbearable. Li Zixuan was a little unconvinced. Just as he was about to refute, Cheng Yaojin spoke first. "Bah, Wei Xuanqing, don't try to flaunt your seniority here." When Cheng Yaojin heard that Li Zixuan was going to be the military secretary of the Black Armored Army, he was very happy, because from the beginning, old Cheng wanted to let Li Zixuan gain experience in the army, because the Tang Empire valued military achievements a lot. So when he saw Wei Zheng jump out to object, how could Cheng Yaojin hold back? He quickly jumped out and unceremoniously retorted, "The Marquis of Yong, and studied under spiritual master Ling Su, and his martial arts attainments are not below mine. Moreover, because of Han Tianhu, the Marquis of Yong, and is a relative of the medicine master. If he wants to learn the art of war, won't he be able to learn it at any time? Also, the previous rebellion in Guan City and the punitive expedition to Liang Shidu. These two battles were won so smoothly because of the Marquis of Yong's contributions. Such a good general seedling. Why did you, Wei Xuanqing, call him a weak scholar who doesn't know anything about military affairs?" Li Jing, who rarely attended morning court, didn't expect to be used as a scapegoat. He couldn't help but shake his head, but he didn't refute. If it was really as Cheng Yaojin said, if Li Zixuan wanted to ask him for advice on the art of war, he probably wouldn't refuse. Wei Zheng's face flushed red as he refuted. "Duke Liu, you are twisting words and forcing logic. During the rebellion in Guan City and the punitive expedition to Liang Shidu, the Marquis of Yong, and did make a great contribution, but that was only behind-the-scenes planning. The Marquis of Yong and is not good at war. If His Majesty forcibly places the Marquis of Yong in the Black Armored Army, it will only backfire. In fact, the reason why Wei Zheng was so vehemently against Li Zishuan joining the army was because he had a certain selfish motive. He admired Li Zishuan very much and hoped that Li Zishuan would have a better development in the field of civil affairs. Not to mention anything else, as long as Li Zishuan could develop Yanwang College well, it would definitely benefit countless people. However, Lier suddenly wanted Li Zishuan to join the army. How could Wei Zheng bear to let such a good seedling be buried in the army? Cheng Yaojin grinned and sneered. Wei Xuanqing, I'm afraid you don't know what kind of position the registrar of the army is. Marching and fighting is the job of the great general. What does it have to do with the registrar of the army? In my opinion, with the Marquis of Yong's current ability, he is more than qualified to be a 6th-rank registrar of the army. When Wei Zheng heard this, he couldn't help but be startled. He was having a great time just now and had almost forgotten about this point. Li Jing took this opportunity to step forward and said, "The registrar of the army is a subordinate of the great general. He is in charge of the great general's records, and he is responsible for investigating good and evil. He is also responsible for strategizing for the great general. From this point of view, the registrar of the army is an official position in the army that is biased towards civil officials. For someone like the Marquis of Yong, and who is full of talent and knows a little about military affairs, that is the most suitable position." This, Wei Zheng didn't expect that Li Jing, who had always kept a low profile, would actually express his opinion on this matter. He couldn't help but be caught off guard. Li Er, who was watching from the sidelines, saw that the time was ripe and announced, "What the medicine master said makes sense. When I appointed Li Zishuan as the registrar of the Black Armored Army, I also had this consideration. Furthermore, the Black Armored Army is the most elite cavalry of the Great Tang Empire. This time, for the Black Armored Army to change their equipment, it must be handled by Li Zishuan personally. Therefore, there is no need to discuss this matter further. Marquis of Yong, and are you willing to be the registrar of the Black Armored Army?" After saying this, Li Er's pair of tiger eyes stared unwaveringly at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan instantly felt a sense of pressure. This was because he wasn't mentally prepared to be the registrar of the Black Armored Army. Li Zishuan glanced at Cheng Yaojin and Li Jing from the corner of his eyes. Seeing the two of them nodding vigorously at him, Li Zishuan gritted his teeth, stepped forward and bowed. "This subject is willing to share your Majesty's worries and contribute to the Black Armored Army. However, this subject isn't willing to give up on Yanwang College. Your Majesty, please allow this subject to take on 2 positions at the same time." Back when the Great Tang Army pacified Shuafang City, Li Zishuan had a premonition that he would participate in the future war between the Great Tang and the Turks. Now, he could make use of this opportunity to participate in the military preparations of the Great Tang Empire. Only by personally participating in the war could he be at ease. As the Turks were too powerful, the Great Tang didn't have a 100% chance of winning against them. At most, it was 50-50. According to the official history, the Great Tang Empire defeated the Turks in the 3rd year of Jingguan. However, the current Great Tang had deviated from the original history in many areas. Only the heavens knew if the Great Tang Empire could still achieve victory in this war. Thus, for the sake of insurance, Li Zishuan had to participate in the Tang Army's preparations to increase the odds of victory for the Great Tang. Only when the scales of victory were completely tilted in the Great Tang's favor, turning the odds of victory from 50-50 to 70-30, or even to none, would Li Zishuan feel at ease. Otherwise, it would be too late for him to make a move when the war was disadvantageous to the Great Tang Empire. It was because of this consideration that Li Zishuan agreed to this task. Otherwise, with his mischievous personality that would never stand if he could lie down, it was impossible for him to find trouble for himself. Good. This emperor approves. Hearing this, not only were Cheng Yaojin and Li Jing overjoyed, Li Er was also overjoyed. He laughed loudly and said, "Duan Jishuan, this emperor will transfer the Marquis of Yong and into the Black Armored Army. You have to work together with him to build the Black Armored Army into the world's #1 cavalry. If the Black Armored Army's battle prowess is not up to this emperor's expectations, this emperor will hold you accountable. Duan Jishuan's heart skipped a beat, but at the same time, a sense of pride rose in his chest. He clasped his fists and said solemnly, "This official will do his best to build the world's #1 cavalry for your majesty." Lier nodded and said, "If there is nothing else to report, the court is dismissed." After he finished speaking, it was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but he turned his gaze to Li Zishuan. If he remembered correctly, Li Zishuan should have something important to report in the morning court. Feeling Emperor Lier's gaze, Li Zishuan was taken aback. However, he quickly reacted and clasped his fists and said, "Your Majesty, this official still has something to report." Hearing this, all the officials in the hall turned to look at Li Zishuan. Today's morning court was really lively. It had been going on since around 7 in the morning, and the sun was about to reach the top of their heads. Many of the officials who had not eaten breakfast were so hungry that their stomachs were growling. Originally, when they heard Lier's words, everyone thought that the court was going to be dismissed. However, at this crucial moment, the main character of the morning court, Li Zishuan, interfered. This morning court was really full of twists and turns. "Oh, what other matters does the Marquis of Yuan have? Say it quickly." Lier pretended to be curious and asked even though he already knew the answer. Li Zishuan said loudly, "Your Majesty, this official request to restructure Yanhuang College into the School of Engineering and the School of Medicine. As the name suggests, the School of Engineering specializes in engineering, while the School of Medicine specializes in medicine. Although the two schools belong to Yanhuang College, they are completely separated. This official intends to use the teaching method of the Imperial Physician Department to open the School of Medicine. When the time comes, this official will not only recruit men who are interested in medicine, but also women who are slightly knowledgeable in medicine and come from medical families. This official requests for your Majesty's permission." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the imperial court, except for Lier, looked at Li Zishuan in shock. Letting women enroll in the college, he really dared to dream. Many of the officials could not help but sigh in their hearts. Ridiculous. Simply ridiculous. Kong Ingda stood up angrily and reprimanded. "Marquis Owen, this old man will not stop you if you want to develop engineering in Yanshan, because your engineering can indeed bring a lot of convenience to the people of Tang Empire. But to let male and female students cohabit in the same college, this old man will definitely not agree. Since ancient times, there's always been a difference between men and women. If men and women are allowed to study together in the same academy, not only will it be immoral, it will also go against the Confucian school's 5 relationships, and it will also ruin the reputation of women. This old man will definitely not agree to this." As a descendant of Confucius, Kong Ingda was naturally the staunchest defender of Confucianism. Although he was different from those narrow-minded scholars who rejected other schools of thought, he would not make any concessions in terms of the moral principles of men and women. Li Zishuan retorted, "Chancellor Kong, I have already said that before the School of Medicine enrolls students, I will order people to completely separate the School of Engineering from the School of Engineering. In the future, this School of Medicine will be like the Imperial Physician Department, specializing in cultivating doctors who are interested in medicine. There will be no gender distinction in front of doctors, and the Imperial Physician Department will also recruit many female students every year. Why can't my School of Medicine enroll them?" Although he did not get along well with Kong Ingda in the past, today he was only discussing the matter as it was, and not specifically going against Kong Ingda for revenge. Kong Ingda did not back down and said, "The Imperial Physician Department is the Imperial Physician Department. Your School of Medicine is the School of Medicine. The Imperial Physician Department recruits female students to cultivate female medical officers for the nobles in the palace. Why does your School of Medicine recruit female students?" Li Zishuan replied, "Of course it is to treat the common women. The Imperial Physician Department trains female medical officers for the nobles in the palace, So why can't the School of Medicine train female doctors for the common women? Bao Gu of the Eastern Jin Dynasty had excellent medical skills and was meticulous. She was good at acupuncture and was famous for treating tumors and warts. She followed her husband Gu Xianweng to Mount Luofu in Guangdong for a long time to refine pills and practice medicine. She treated the people and helped the people. Her reputation spread far and wide in the Lingnan area, and her name went down in history. As a great scholar, why can't Chancellor Kong tolerate the thousands of female doctors who aspire to become Bao Gu in his eyes? His Majesty has always loved the people like his children. The men in this world are His Majesty's people. So are the women. If a woman is sick, don't they need a female doctor? Hearing this, Kong Yingdao was momentarily a loss for words. However, after pausing for a moment, he still stubbornly said, "It is said that one can't hide their illness for fear of treatment. If a woman is sick, so what if she is treated by a male doctor? Furthermore, there is no lack of female doctors in the world today. There is no need for your School of Medicine to do something superfluous." Li Zixuan couldn't help but say, "Chancellor Kong, you just said that there is a difference between men and women. Now you are saying that one can't hide their illness for fear of treatment. Aren't you contradicting yourself? If a woman is sick with a very private illness, in order to protect her reputation, she would rather die of her illness than seek treatment from a male doctor. At that time, what would you say, Chancellor Kong?" Kong Yingda was instantly speechless. At this moment, all the officials in the imperial court were silent. Firstly, Li Zixuan had entered the palace today to present plate armor, vanadium steel horse lance, and other new equipment. He had also shouldered the logistics of the Black Armored Army by himself, greatly increasing the military strength of the Black Armored Army. No one could deny such a contribution. At this time, if they stood out to reject Li Zixuan's suggestion, it would seem unreasonable. Secondly, which family didn't have a woman? Li Zixuan's words were right. Some women's private illnesses were indeed not suitable for a male doctor to treat. Therefore, in their hearts, they actually hoped that Yin Huang College's School of Medicine could cultivate more female doctors. Chapter 1446. In this debate regarding Yin Huang College's recruitment of female students, Li Zixuan won by a very small margin. The reason for his victory was mainly because Li Zixuan had performed a great service today. In addition, there was the precedent of the Imperial Medical Department. As long as Yin Huang College separated the medical department, it was basically equivalent to a second Imperial Medical Department. The only difference was that the Imperial Medical Department served the Imperial Court, while his Imperial Medical Department served the common people. After Li Er announced in front of the civil and military officials that Yin Huang College's medical department could recruit female students, he ordered the court to withdraw. The civil and military officials, who had long been hungry, hurriedly withdrew from the Taiji Palace and returned to their homes. "Marquis Yoan, have you thought it through? Do you really plan to join the Black Armored Army?" Wei Jing suddenly asked when he passed by Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan stopped in his tracks and nodded. "That's right. This marquis has already decided. Cavalry is what we need the most in the grasslands. If we can build the Black Armored Army into an invincible force, our chances of victory in the future war with the Turks will be much higher." When Wei Zheng heard this, he still felt that Li Zixuan was taking things for granted. He shook his head and sighed deeply. "AI, you're still thinking too simply. The situation on the battlefield is ever-changing and complicated. It's not that easy to deal with. You're full of talent. You should be concentrating on teaching and educating people, but now you're going to join the Black Armored Army. What a pity! What a pity!" After saying this, Old Wei sighed and left with his hands behind his back. Li Zixuan wanted to refute, but Wei Zheng had already walked far away. However, Wei Zheng's attitude towards him now seemed a little strange. It felt like heroes sympathizing with each other. This made him feel a little puzzled. He thought to himself, when did Wei Zheng start treating me so well? "Hey, little Xian, don't listen to Wei Xuanqing's nonsense." While he was deep in thought, Cheng Yaojin's laughter suddenly came from behind him. Old Chung quickly walked to Li Zixuan's side and said, Wei Xuanqing, that stubborn old man, wants to keep you in the court to promote culture and education so that you could be an upright civil official whose name will go down in history. But Xiaoxian, with your martial arts and strategy, wouldn't it be a pity if you don't help our Tang Empire pacify the four sides? It's a pity that His Majesty didn't arrange for you to join this old man's left guard camp. However, Duan Jixian's black armored army isn't bad either. It's a good place to gain experience. Little Xian, you definitely won't regret going there. Old Chung had always had high hopes for Li Zixuan when it came to military affairs. However, Li Zixuan wasn't interested in joining the military in the beginning. In addition, he was the only child of the old Li family, so Old Chung couldn't persuade him. Now, with Li Heir's push, Li Zixuan had finally entered the military. Old Chung was happy from the bottom of his heart. After all, in his opinion, how could promoting science and education be more satisfying than going to war and killing enemies? When Li Zixuan heard this, he smiled slightly and said, This nephew understands. As the saying goes, men should be hot-blooded. Serving the country isn't just one way to promote science and education. Going to war and killing enemies is also considered serving the country. Little Xian is right. However, you're proficient in both civil and military affairs. Even if the situation is special, it's best that you don't fall behind in both civil and military affairs. Qin Xiong had unknowingly followed behind the two of them and chuckled. He looked at the problem more comprehensively and profoundly than Sheng Yaojin. He knew that Yanhuang College was likely to become Li Zixuan's strong foundation in the Tang Empire in the future. Therefore, he felt that while Li Zixuan joined the military, he shouldn't give up on Yanhuang College's career. After all, since ancient times, the country had been founded by martial arts and ruled by civil letters. Once the world was completely settled, the role of military generals in the imperial court would become smaller and smaller. At that time, promoting science and education would be the way to go. Uncle Qin, you're right. This nephew is indeed planning to do so. Li Zixuan nodded and replied, That's for the best. The few of them left the palace and went home separately. As Li Zixuan's main task for joining the Black Armored Army this time was to let the soldiers of the Black Armored Army get used to the new equipment and practice the tactics that were compatible with the new equipment. However, the Black Armored Army only needed a few sets of the new equipment and was far from being able to mass-produce them. Therefore, Li Zixuan wasn't in a hurry to report to the military camp and be on duty. After handing over the plate armor and lance to Pang Feiji, Li Zixuan urged his horse and headed towards the east gate of Chang and city. However, as he was wearing plate armor when he entered the city in the morning, he was still recognized by many citizens. Therefore, as he walked on the streets, many citizens stared at Li Zixuan without blinking as if they were looking at a rare species. Li Zixuan felt uncomfortable being stared at like that. Therefore, he hurriedly increased the speed of his horse, wanting to leave Chang and city as soon as possible. Nay, Boss Lin. When he was about to reach the Yinxing gate, Li Zixuan suddenly saw a familiar person through the window of a carriage beside him. He stopped his horse and greeted him. That's right, this person was the first batch of members of the Yanhuang Chamber of Commerce, Lin Wenyuan. Li Zixuan could still remember Lin Wenyuan's son, Lin Hao, calling him Grandmaster in order to fool the guards and watch the fireworks on Yinshan Mountain. Marquis, you just finished your morning court session, right? I was just about to go to Yinshan Mountain to visit you. Lin Wenyuan was shocked when he heard that. He hurriedly asked the coachman to stop the carriage, opened the curtains, and jumped off the carriage. He cupped his hands and greeted Li Zixuan. As everyone knew, although Li Zixuan was a noble, he did not attend morning court sessions. Moreover, after Yanhuang College was built last year, Li Zixuan did not live in Chang'an City. Therefore, when he saw that the person outside the carriage was really Li Zixuan, Lin Wenyuan was a little surprised. Boss Lin is looking for me? Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat as he asked curiously. Lin Wenyuan was a little embarrassed. There are some trivial matters, but the weather is hot now. Marquis, if you don't mind, please come to the carriage for a chat. I will go to Lantian County to visit Boss Chow in a while. After Lantian County announced a series of preferential policies for merchants, Chow Wendong moved his entire family to Lantian County. Therefore, if Lin Wenyuan wanted to see Chow Wendong now, he had to go to Lantian County. Li Zixuan pondered for a moment, then nodded. All right, then let's go to Lantian County together. Marquis, please, Lin Wenyuan said happily. Li Zixuan smiled and did not refuse. He turned around and handed Big White to Pang Feiji, then went straight to the Lin family carriage. As one of the first members of the Yin Huang Chamber of Commerce, Lin Wenyuan's carriage was naturally very luxurious. This was a special edition Don't Touch Me carriage that was custom-made from the Strange Interest Pavilion. Compared to other Don't Touch Me carriages, Lin Wenyuan's carriage had more space inside. Of course, the interior was also more luxurious. Although this was the case, Li Zixuan did not have the time to care about this. After he sat down, after sitting down, he asked directly, Boss Lin, what do you want to talk to me about? Can you say it now? Lin Wenyuan immediately smiled apologetically. Marquis, please forgive me. You have to waste your time on me despite your busy schedule. I feel very uneasy. Li Zixuan waved his hand and interrupted. There's no need to be so courteous. I've known Boss Lin for a long time. Boss Lin, if you have something to say, just say it. Lin Wenyuan knew that Li Zixuan was the kind of person who did not like to beat around the bush. Hearing this, he said directly, Marquis, it's like this. This morning, I heard that you created a kind of immortal carriage that does not require human or animal power to move quickly. Is this true? Li Zixuan could roughly guess what Lin Wenyuan wanted to say. His eyes flashed, and he said, That thing is not called an immortal carriage. There are no immortals in this world. That carriage is called an electric bicycle. I modified the original bicycle and changed it from the front wheel to the rear wheel. Then, with the help of the workshop's special electric motor and lead-acid battery, the bicycle can rely on electricity to move quickly. As for the name Immortal Carriage that the people gave to the electric bicycle, although it sounded very domineering, Li Zixuan did not like it because he felt that the name contained too much superstition. Even though his soul had somehow transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty, Li Zixuan still did not believe in the existence of immortals in this world. Therefore, he would definitely not use the name Immortal Chariot in the future. Especially now that engineering had developed to a certain extent, many people had begun to truly understand this world. Li Zixuan did not wish to become a theologian when all his students had become propagators of engineering. I see. After listening to Li Zixuan, Lin Wenyuan could not help but be enlightened. Then, he asked tentatively, Marquis, I wonder if you plan to sell this electric bicycle to the public in the future? Li Zixuan's eyes narrowed. He thought for a moment and said, If the electric bicycle wants to run for a long time, it must be charged with lead-acid batteries. Before the power lines are widely available, the electric bicycle cannot be sold. Lin Wenyuan was a little disappointed when he heard this. Li Zixuan saw this and asked, It seems that Boss Lin wants to make money from the electric bicycle? No. Lin Wenyuan was shocked and quickly waved his hand. Marquis, please understand. I did not mean that. The bicycle that the workshop made previously has already made me a lot of money. I do not dare to have any other thoughts. Now, I just want to help Marquis with his worries. Help me with my worries? What do you mean? Li Zixuan was puzzled. Lin Wenyuan swallowed his saliva and said carefully, I heard that Marquis is in need of copper, and I happen to know a few Japanese businessmen. They are very fond of Tang's bicycles. They said that in Japan, as long as you have a bicycle, you can exchange it for anything, including copper. To tell you the truth, Marquis, I once used 3 bicycles to exchange for 15,000 caddies of brass. So much? On average, 1 bicycle can be exchanged for 5,000 caddies of brass? Li Zixuan was surprised. When the bicycle was first sold, it was only 400 strings of coins. That did not include the discount for membership cards. Later, as the workshop's bicycle production increased, the price of a bicycle was slightly lowered. Now, it was about 350 strings of coins to buy one. In this era, The value of brass was difficult to measure with money because the imperial court did not allow the private sale of brass. However, many people melted copper coins to make brawnware. Tang's copper coins were about 7 to 8 caddies, and 350 strings of coins weighed about 3,000 caddies. In order to buy a bicycle, the Japanese businessmen were willing to pay a high price of 5,000 caddies of brass. This made Li Zixuan a little bit tempted. After all, he was in need of copper, and the main material of the bicycle was iron. Using a little iron to exchange for a large amount of brass was a business that Li Zixuan thought could be done, but this brass should be under the control of the imperial court in Japan, right? I've heard that the Neon people also use copper coins. How could the Neon court allow those merchants to sell so much brass without permission? Li Zixuan quickly reacted and asked. In China's Tang Dynasty, Japan also used the Tang Dynasty's Kaiyuan Tongbao, issued in 621. At the same time, they began to issue the Hutong Kaishi, silver cast by Nara in 708, followed by Wanyan Tongbao, Shingon Kaibao, Longping Yongbao, Fusho Shinbao, Chingachangbao, Chanyanabao, Raoi Shunbao, Jingguan Yongbao, and Quamping Dabao. In 907, when the Tang Dynasty ended, they also issued Yinshi Tongbao and Tihu. In short, it was very messy, but many currencies were made of copper. The Japanese rulers were also very strict about the control of copper mines. Lin Wenyuan quickly replied, "Marquis, you may not know, but the current Japan is very different from before. Ever since Shanbei, the son of Crown Prince Shingda, returned to Japan, he immediately ascended to the throne. He imitated the Tang Dynasty's 6 ministries to reform the government, and at the same time, he set up an academy and abolished the old customs. It is said that the knowledge taught in his academy is the Marquis New Mathematics. I think that before Big Brother Shanbei returned to the country, he must have bought a few copies of the new mathematics teaching materials and brought them back." Hearing this, Li Zixuan frowned and asked, "What does this have to do with the Japanese businessmen selling brass?" Lin Wenyuan replied, "Marquis, of course it has to do with them. It is said that the newly ascended king of Japan directly abolished the copper coin and used the Tang Yuan of Tang as the domestic currency. In addition, he built many seaports, wanting to trade with the sea merchants of Tang Dynasty and exchange what they need. In this way, since Japan does not use copper coins, the control of the sale of brass among the people is naturally much smaller." Li Zixuan's face did not show any joy when he heard this. Instead, he could not help but feel his heart sink. If Japan continued to develop like this, in less than 20 years, there would be an extremely powerful opponent around Tang Dynasty. At this moment, Li Zixuan was a little regretful that he hadn't kept his big brother king in the Great Tang forever. "Well, in that case, we will exchange the copper needed by the workshop with the Japanese businessmen in the future. Anyway, no matter what, we won't lose anything." Li Zixuan thought for a moment and said, he was really short of copper now. If he could exchange a large amount of copper from the Japanese, he could not ask for more. As for the hidden danger of Shanbei, he could only think about it later. Chapter 1447. Lantian County had a Gall aluminum mine. According to Wang Ji's investigation, the reserves of this mine were not small at all. However, using the wet process to refine copper was a problem. It was basically impossible to refine a large amount of copper in a short period of time. Therefore, after hearing Lin Wenyuan say that bicycles could be exchanged for a large amount of copper from the Japanese merchants, Li Zixuan decided to temporarily use the brass in the hands of the Japanese merchants to solve the problem of the workshop's lack of copper. "Boss Lin, go and inform the members of the Chamber of Commerce to get rid of all their bicycles as soon as possible. In addition, I will give you 50 bicycles from the workshop. Take them to the Japanese merchants and exchange them for brass as soon as possible. Get as much as you can." Li Zixuan suddenly said as the carriage traveled on the cement road to Lantian County. Lin Wenyuan could hear the urgency in Li Zixuan's words and couldn't help but wonder, "Marquis, why are you in such a hurry to sell all your bicycles?" Also, if you take out so many bicycles at once, the Japanese merchants will take the opportunity to lower the price. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter if they lower the price, as long as it's within an acceptable range. This range is probably not lower than 80% of the current market price. Also, there's something you probably don't know, and that is that the workshop will soon release the second generation of bicycles. The electric bicycle I told you about before is based on the second generation of bicycles. Compared to the first generation of bicycles, the second generation of bicycles uses the latest technology from the Strange Taste Pavilion workshop. Not only does it save energy, but it's also safer. It can be said that anyone who has ridden the second generation of bicycles will definitely not be willing to ride the first generation of bicycles. The workshop will soon mass-produce the second generation of bicycles. When that time comes, the demand for the first generation of bicycles will definitely decrease. If you don't hurry up and get rid of all your bicycles, you'll have to sell them at a lower price in the future." After doing business for decades, Lin Wenyuan obviously understood the twists and turns of this matter. Hearing this, he was very grateful and said, "Thank you, Marquis, for your reminder. I will pass on Marquis' message to the rest of the people before dark today. When the time comes, I will also give you a batch of second-generation bicycles to trade with the Japanese. Lantian County needs copper very much." Li Zishuan nodded and said with some emotion. Li Zishuan didn't know how much copper would be needed to build a county-level power grid and connect the entire Lantian County to electricity. But it was an astronomical figure, and he could only use all means to get as much copper as possible. "I understand." Lin Wenyuan cupped his hands in acknowledgement. Suddenly, after a moment of hesitation, he said, "Marquis, ever since the establishment of the Department of Commerce in Lantian County, it has become a paradise for merchants. Here, we merchants are able to receive equal treatment. This Lin has been discussing with my wife recently. We wish to follow Boss Chow's example and move our family to Lantian County. I wonder if Marquis can grant us permission?" In fact, Lin Wenyuan wanted to move to Lantian County not only because the Department of Commerce had raised the status of businessmen, but also because of his son's future. Although Lin Hao had Iron Egg as his teacher, and after more than half a year of studying in seclusion, he had a higher chance of passing the Yanwang College this year. But what if he didn't pass? If that really happened, Lin Wenyuan planned to send Lin Hao to the county school in Lantian County. Moreover, hearing that Li Zishuan needed brass, it was obvious that he wanted to connect the entire Lantian County to electricity. That way, Lantian County would become more dazzling than Chang'an City. When that time came, many people from other counties would want to move to Lantian County. "Oh, Mr. Lin also wants to move to Lantian County? That's good. You can move directly. The conditions for moving to Lantian County are still very generous." Li Zishuan heard this and said with some surprise, "Thank you, Marquis." Lin Wenyuan cupped his hands and said, with Li Zishuan's words, it would be much easier for him to move to the county office later. "What? Xian? You want to go to the Black Armored Army to be a clerk?" Returning to the Marquis' mansion in Lantian County, Li Zishuan told the two elders in detail what had happened in the morning court. After Madame Li heard it, she was almost scared half to death. After all, she and Li Zishuan only had this one son. In the early years, Li Zishuan had followed spiritual master Lingxiu into the mountains to nurse his body because of his weak body. But now that Li Zishuan was healthy and had made a name for himself, how could Madame Li accept this? Li Jingma's face also froze. Although he did not panic like Madame Li, in those eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, he could not help but reveal a deep sense of worry. "Mother, don't worry. The registrar of the record is in charge of all the documents and records. He is also in charge of planning and giving advice to the general. He won't lead the troops to charge and break through enemy lines, so there won't be any danger. Now that the Tang Empire and the Turks are at daggers drawn, a war is likely to break out. I have learned some skills from my master. If I don't use them now, when the Tang Empire is trampled by the foreign tribes one day, not only will I regret it for the rest of my life, but my master will also not be able to rest in peace. Li Zishuan patted his mother's hand and patiently persuaded her. Madame Li was about to say something, but Yi Guozhong said at this time, "Little Xian is right. Back then, how heroic was spiritual master Ling Su. He single-handedly fought against hundreds of Turkic wolf cavalry, causing the alien races to tremble in fear. As the last disciple of spiritual master Ling Su, little Xian couldn't be a coward and do nothing when the Kingdom War was about to arrive. Moreover, His Majesty has transferred little Xian into the Black Armored Army, the most elite cavalry of the Tang Empire. This shows that His Majesty has high hopes for little Xian. How can this imperial favor be easily rejected?" Madame Li was not an unreasonable person. She understood the general principles, but when it came to her son, she would rather be muddle-headed. At this time, her eyes were red. "Father, Yuzhu doesn't care about imperial favor. Little Xian is my child. I would rather he be useless for the rest of his life than risk his life." After saying that, she nervously held Li Zishuan's hand and said, "Little Xian, you are the only son of our family. According to the laws of the country, you don't have to join the army. Go and talk to His Majesty now and reject this job, okay? A mother's love is great, but sometimes a mother's love is selfish." Looking at the nervous and concerned Mrs. Li in front of him, Li Zishuan didn't feel good in his heart. Humans aren't plants and can't be emotionless. After spending more than a year together, he had long regarded this woman in front of him as his biological mother in this life. After a pause, he adjusted his mood and said, "Mother, I know you are doing this for my own good, but I have a reason to join the Black Armored Army. Currently, my workshop has created a type of armor that is especially suitable for the Black Armored Army. It can greatly increase their battle prowess. I have to help them adapt to this new equipment and practice new tactics. But don't worry, I am just an insignificant member of the army, not a general. I don't have to lead troops in a battle, and I won't be in any danger. In fact, I don't want to be rich in this life. I only hope to protect my family and let the people around me live in peace and happiness. Now that the enemy is before us, if I am afraid of the slightest thing, and if the Tang Empire is defeated by the Turks, when the country is destroyed, the millions of families in the Central Plains will be massacred by the foreign races. No one will be spared. Mother, do you really want to see that kind of scene?" After listening to Li Zishuan's description of the terrifying scene, Madame Li couldn't help but tremble. She hurriedly shook her head and said, "Mother, of course I don't want to see that kind of scene. But little Xian, there are many famous generals in the imperial court. Even if you don't go, it won't affect the overall situation, right?" Li Zishuan replied, "Mother, if a war breaks out between the Tang Empire and the Turks, the chances of victory will be 50-50. At this time, if we can increase the chances of victory by a little, we can change the outcome of the war." Yi Guozhong stroked his beard and nodded. "Little Xian is right. Yuzhu, there's no small matter when it comes to the country. It is rare that little Xian is so capable, and His Majesty is willing to give him a chance to serve the country. As his mother, you should understand." Li Jingma knew that this matter was almost a foregone conclusion. He let out a long sigh and looked at his wife. He also comforted her. "Madam, father-in-law is right. Little Xian has grown up. What path he wants to take is his own choice. As his parents, we can only silently support him from behind. We only hope that we don't cause him any trouble." Seeing that her husband and father were both comforting her, Madame Li knew that there was no turning back. She wiped away her tears and looked at Li Zishuan. "Little Xian, then you have to promise me that you will never put yourself in danger at any time." Mother, don't worry." Li Zishuan naturally nodded in agreement. After such a commotion, Madame Li felt physically and mentally exhausted. She shook her head and returned to her room to rest. Li Jingma looked at Li Zishuan with a complicated expression. In the end, all the words he wanted to say turned into a sigh. "Xian, you've already grown up. In the future, no matter when or where, before you make a decision, I hope you can think about your mother, your wife, and this family." After saying that, Without waiting for Li Zixuan's response, Li Jingmao left with his hands clasped behind his back. Han Yushi, who had been standing silently at the side, wrung her hands and silently left. Li Zixuan felt a little guilty, but when he made this decision, he had already expected his family to oppose it. At this time, he couldn't say anything. The next day, the second enrollment announcement for Yanhuang College's medical school was officially published by Tang Daily. After reading the contents of the new enrollment announcement, the public was completely stirred up. Yanhuang College's medical school is accepting students regardless of gender? What? Does that mean Yanhuang College is going to recruit female students? What kind of scandal is this? That's not it. Didn't you see that the medical school is allowed to recruit female students? Right now, Yanhuang College is divided into two major schools, the medical school and the engineering school. It is said that these two schools are separated by a high wall and are completely independent. The medical school is almost like the Imperial Medical Department. Now, that's good. The female students recruited by the Imperial Medical Department will be sent to the palace to be female medical officers. The female students trained by Yanhuang College's medical school might be sent to Marquis's Great Tang Joint Medical Center in the future. When that time comes, there will be more female doctors among the people. Wives and daughters won't have to look for female doctors to treat their illnesses. Yes. That's very possible. I heard that there are already female doctors in the Great Tang Joint Medical Center in Lantian County. There might be more in the future. Marquis is really considerate of us commoners. The Marquis of Yong, and is immoral. You are actually praising him here? I am going to the palace to impeach the Marquis of Yong'an. Don't you dare slander the Marquis of Yong'an. Do you believe that I won't beat you up? Yes, beat him up. Most of the people were supportive of the Yanhuang College's medical school's recruitment of female students. After all, there was the precedent of the Imperial Medical Department. Moreover, Li Zixuan was doing this for the good of the people. How could they not support him? However, when some of the scholars heard the news, they privately reprimanded Li Zhe for offending public decency. However, whether they were truly angry or enraged out of jealousy, that was something that no one knew. In any case, Yanhuang College was currently in a state of jubilation. Yinfu, did you hear? The medical school is going to recruit female students? What? Is that true? Of course it's true. Look, it's written in today's Tang Daily. I heard that even the emperor agreed. This is too crazy. What a pity. What a pity that a high wall will be built between the medical school and the engineering school. The students from both sides will not be able to walk around. Even if we want to see the new female students, I'm afraid it won't be easy. Ahem. Yuan Shua, your thoughts are too filthy. If you really want to see the new female students, why don't you just transfer to the medical school? You think I don't want to? If I want to enter the medical school, I have to pass the exam. I don't know anything about medicine. How can I pass the exam? Chu Yanfu was just saying it casually. However, when he heard Yuan Shua's words, he could not help but vomit blood. Similar conversations took place in every corner of Yanhuang College. It was no wonder that the students were so excited. In fact, Yinshan Mountain was mostly filled with men. It was like a temple for monks. As the saying goes, a gentle and graceful woman is a gentleman's dream. They were still in their adolescence. How could they not be excited when they heard that the college was going to recruit female students? Baolin, Ziffin, I have a good idea. In Class 1, during the break, Chung Chumo suddenly shouted excitedly. What good idea do you have, Chumo? Tell me. Sun Ziffin's eyes lit up, and he immediately said excitedly. Chung Chumo smirked and whispered, Binoculars. We can go to the courtyard on the 4th floor and use binoculars to see the view of the medical school. Smack. As soon as Chung Chumo finished speaking, he felt a strong gust of wind at the back of his head. A solid slap landed on the back of his head, followed by an annoyed voice. You're using your cleverness on crooked ways. If Uncle Chung finds out, won't he break your legs? Chapter 1448. Only Chung Chumo could come up with such a wicked idea, like using an astronomical telescope to peek at a beautiful woman. This kind of thing was something that many restless youths in modern society had done before, but Cheng Chumo, as a man from the Tang Dynasty, was actually able to come up with this idea. It had to be said that this guy's brain circuit was a bit different from others. Yamacho, why are you here? Cheng Chumo was about to scold him when he heard Li Zexuan's voice behind him. He immediately changed his words. Li Zexuan rolled his eyes and said impatiently, "Why am I here? If I didn't come, someone would have used the Academy's astronomical telescope to peek at women." Cheng Chumo was speechless. Yuchi Bao Lin and Sun Zi Fan hurriedly sat upright and still, acting as if this matter had nothing to do with them, and they were unconcerned. Li Zexuan looked around and asked curiously, "Where's Qin Ke? Why isn't he in the classroom?" Cheng Chumo rubbed his head and replied, "Oh, Qin Ke saw Yamacho's new electric bicycle at the workshop the day before yesterday and wanted to go to the workshop to build it. You should be looking for Mr. Li Gang or Mr. Imo now, right? Qin Ke wants to build a bicycle." Li Zexuan was stunned when he heard this. Cheng Chumo nodded and said, "Yeah, he even told me about it yesterday. Hey, Yamacho, tomorrow is Saturday. Can you lend me your electric bicycle for 2 days?" As he spoke, Cheng Chumo suddenly shamelessly asked Li Zexuan to lend him his car. Li Zexuan looked at him from head to toe and said angrily, "With your careless temper, if I lend you my car, you'll either hurt yourself or someone else. I think I'd better not borrow it." Cheng Chumo panicked when he heard that. Yamacho, how can you look down on me? I, Cheng Chumo, am someone who has ridden a war horse and been on the battlefield. I'm just riding an electric bicycle. How could I hit someone?" Li Zexuan didn't want to talk to this idiot, so he turned around and prepared to leave the classroom. He came to the academy today mainly to talk to Li Gang, Yin, Silu, and the others about something, and also to check on the teaching situation in the academy. "Hey, Yamacho, don't go. Are you going to lend me this electric bike or not? If you lend it to me for 2 days, I promise I won't hit anyone. If I really hit someone, I'll do whatever you want me to do in the future without any hesitation." In order to borrow the electric bicycle, Cheng Chumo was going all out. He was betting his future freedom. Li Zexuan was helpless. After all, this idiot was his good brother. He could only wave his hand and say, Okay. Lend it to you for 2 days. After school, you can go to the county and get it yourself." Hee. Thank you, Yamacho. Cheng Chumo couldn't help but laugh proudly when he heard that. Suddenly, he pointed at the door and said, "Yo, Yamacho, Qin Ke is back. Weren't you looking for him just now?" Li Zexuan turned around and saw Li Tai walking toward him. He took 2 steps forward and stopped in front of Li Tai. Li Tai saw Li Zexuan and hurriedly greeted him. "Yamacho." Li Zexuan nodded and said, "Qin Ke, come with me." "Okay." Li Tai hesitated for a moment, then followed Li Zexuan out of the classroom. "Qin Ke, I heard you wanted to go to the workshop to build a bike. How was it? Did you go to see Mr. Imo or Mr. Wenji?" Downstairs, Li Zexuan looked at Li Tai and asked. Li Tai nodded and replied, "Yes. I just want to see Mr. Imo. He said that as long as Yamacho agrees, I can go to the workshop to study how to build a bike. In the future, I might be able to build a bike that's even better than an electric bike." Li Zexuan found it funny and said, "Qin Ke, why do you suddenly want to build a bike?" Li Tai was silent for a moment and said, "Yamacho, although the teachers in the academy have taught us a lot of engineering knowledge, Qin Ke thinks that if this knowledge can't be used in practice, it's no different from Zhao Kuo's theory. Mr. Wang made sulfuric acid based on practice. Professor Imo made telescopes, electric motors, and generators through practice. Xiaoke is now practicing in the Yanhuang Bank to verify the economic knowledge he learned from Yamacho, and I also want to use practice to verify the knowledge I learned. The day before yesterday, when I saw the electric bicycle made by Professor Imo and Shanjian, I felt that only by personally participating in the practice could I deepen my knowledge. Only then would I be able to show the value of engineering. Only then would I be able to create such a magical and convenient tool like the electric bicycle. So, Yamacho, please let Qin Ke go to the workshop to participate in the practice." Li Zexuan didn't expect Li Tai to say this to him. He couldn't help but look at Li Tai in surprise, then asked thoughtfully, "Qingke, are you trying to compete with Xiaoke?" He was a little worried that the little fatty had been provoked by Li Ku, so he took the initiative to volunteer to practice in the workshop. This kind of competitive mentality was not good, especially between the princes. Li Tai heard this and shook his head without hesitation, saying, "No, I just don't think I'm worse than anyone." Confidence. This little fatty has always been so confident. Li Zishuan paused, then smiled. "That's fine. You can go to the workshop to practice, but you can't fall behind in your studies. I'm very pleased that you can understand so many principles." Li Tai was overjoyed when he heard this and quickly cupped his hands, saying, "Thank you, Yamacho." "Oh, right. I heard from Mr. Mo that Professor Mo and Xiaoning are about to get married, so he hopes that I can take over Professor Mo's work as soon as possible." "Yamacho, then I'll go to the workshop today." Li Zishuan was stunned and said, "Ink Girl and Xiaoning are about to get married? Aren't they not engaged yet?" Li Tai said strangely, "They were engaged yesterday. Don't you know about Yamacho?" Yesterday? Li Zishuan was busy attending the morning court and dispelling the worries of his family yesterday. How could he have the time to pay attention to Yin Shan? However, if what the little fatty said was true, then Yin Xiaoning and Mo Lingwei's wedding date was very likely to be soon. "Qingke, do you know when they're getting married?" Li Zishuan asked. Li Tai thought for a while and answered, "Yamacho, I think I heard from Mr. Mo that they should be getting married at the end of this month." At the end of the month. No wonder Mo Huai wanted Mo Lingwei to hand over her work to Li Tai so quickly. It turned out that in half a month, Mo Lingwei would be getting married. It was indeed not suitable for her to be in public at this time. Li Zishuan thought of this and smiled. "That's fine. I know all about it. Qingke, if you have any problems or difficulties, feel free to look for me or Mr. Mo." Li Tai cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, sir." Li Zishuan nodded and then left the academy. He went down the mountain and walked towards a workshop. Chapter 1449. Brother Zhang, how's the progress of the new armor? How long will it take to make 5,000 sets? After descending the Cloud Mountain, Li Zishuan went to the temporary blacksmith workshop near the Ba River hydropower station. He asked someone to call Zhang Hongsheng over and asked. Currently, the workshop wasn't lacking in iron. This was because Li Zishuan had his own iron ore, and the Zhangsun clan had also given him their iron ore. Of course, the condition was that Li Zishuan had to give half of the iron he refined from the Zhangsun clan's iron ore to the Zhangsun clan. However, this time, Zhangsun Wuji had generously agreed to give Li Zishuan 200,000 jin of iron ore for free. Thus, he wasn't lacking in raw materials for producing weapons and armor. What he lacked was speed. Zhang Hongsheng might have just come over from the forge as his forehead was covered in sweat. When he heard Li Zishuan's question, he wiped his sweat and replied, "Marquis, vanadium steel horse lances, horse armor, and horseshoes are easy to make. However, plate armor isn't easy to make. When making it, we have to consider the coordination between the joints of the body and the plate armor. Although we have the hydraulic press now, we can only make 10 sets of plate armor in a day. If we want to make all 5,000 sets of plate armor, it will take about 500 days. 500 days? Li Zishuan couldn't help but frown. He couldn't even wait 100 days, let alone 500 days. After pondering for a moment, Li Zishuan asked, "If we add a few more hydraulic presses, can we increase the speed of making plate armor?" Zhang Hongsheng scratched his head and thought for a moment before replying, "Marquis, this can be done. However, other than the hydraulic presses, I think our workshop needs to recruit a group of blacksmiths. Otherwise, the speed won't increase much." Li Zishuan nodded and said, "That's true. I'll ask Faubert to recruit a group of blacksmiths as soon as possible. If you know any blacksmiths, you can introduce them to us." Zhang Hongsheng chuckled and said, "Hey, Marquis, now that you mention it, I do think of some blacksmiths that I know. Their skills are definitely superb. If I'm free in the next few days, I'll ask them to come over and help." Li Zishuan heard this and immediately felt relieved. He smiled and said, "Whether it's recruiting blacksmiths or adding hydraulic presses, you can go ahead and do it. You don't need to worry about the materials and money. I just need you to get 5,000 sets of plate armor made as soon as possible. 2 months, 2 months at most. Brother Zhang, are you confident that you can complete the task? 2 months? Zhang Hongxing couldn't help but be stunned. According to the current speed, it would take a total of 500 days, but Li Zishuan had said 60 days, directly reducing the time to a tenth. Zhang Hongsheng subconsciously wanted to directly say that it couldn't be completed, but seeing the urgency in Li Zishuan's eyes, it was obvious that Li Zishuan wanted to create 5,000 sets of plate armor as quickly as possible, regardless of the cost. Was the Tang Empire about to go to war? Zhang Hongsheng suddenly had such a conjecture in his mind. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Marquis, I can't promise you this, but I will do my best. I hope that when the time comes, I won't disappoint Marquis. Zhang Hongsheng clenched his teeth and cupped his fists. Li Zishuan didn't make things difficult for Zhang Hongsheng. Instead, he smiled and said, "Okay, then I'll look forward to your good news. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask Faubert or me." After that, Li Zishuan turned around and prepared to leave. Zhang Hongsheng suddenly said, "Marquis, there's something I need your help with." Li Zishuan stopped and turned around to ask, "What's the matter?" Zhang Hongsheng said, "Marquis, I presume that you also know that in order for plate armor to maximize its effectiveness, it first has to match the stature of the soldiers. Otherwise, plate armor will greatly affect the soldiers' movements on the battlefield. Thus, this Zhang wishes to ask Marquis to send someone to measure the bodies of the soldiers wearing plate armor." Li Zishuan couldn't help but think that Zhang Hongsheng was rather thoughtful. But he still frowned and said, "This way, I presume that it will greatly affect the speed of the armor production, right?" It should." Zhang Hongxing scratched his head, somewhat troubled. "But your suggestion isn't unreasonable. How about this? I'll send someone to measure the bodies of the soldiers, and you'll need to use the data I provide you to divide their bodies into 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and large. Each size actually corresponds to a range of figures. As for how much this range is, you can decide for yourself. This way, we only need to produce 4 sizes of plate armor. Although there will be some discrepancies after the soldiers wear them, it won't affect their normal activities. In addition, when forging the plate armor, Brother Zhang, you must remember to let the craftsmen work together and divide the plate armor into many parts for a specific group of craftsmen to specialize in producing. For example, a group of craftsmen will specialize in making wrist guards, another group will specialize in making shoulder armor, and another group will specialize in making helmets. This way, a production unit only needs to focus on one part of the work. This can greatly increase the efficiency and production. Li Zishuan briefly explained the modern clothing size grading system to Zhang Hongsheng. Compared to tailoring, making clothes according to the size of the clothes could greatly save labor and time. This was also why the clothes in modern shopping malls were labeled with S, M, L, and so on. Speaking of sizes, Li Zishuan remembered that plate armor was very suitable to be made using the assembly line method. So, he taught the assembly line method to Zhang Hongsheng. In fact, in the new workshop of Strange Interest Pavilion, some workshops had already used the assembly line method for a long time, such as the bicycle workshop. However, Zhang Hongsheng joined the workshop relatively late, so he wasn't very familiar with the assembly line method. Hearing this, Zhang Hongxing's eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "Marquis method of dividing the sizes and dividing the work is simply too good. This way, our workshop can really make 5,000 sets of plate armor in 2 months." Hearing Zhang Hongxing's words, Li Zishuan couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "That's great. Then we'll have to trouble Brother Zhang." "Marquis, don't worry." After leaving the plate armor forging workshop, Li Zishuan went directly to the workshop to look for Faubert. He told Faubert about the expansion of blacksmiths and the addition of hydraulic stamping machines. Faubert naturally agreed. After repeatedly reminding Faubert to do his best to ensure Zhang Hongxing's production, Li Zishuan turned and went to the laboratory in the workshop. In the morning, Li Tai said that Yin Xiaoning and Mo Lingwei were about to get married. As a good friend and boss, Li Zixuan had to personally go and see the newlyweds. Xiaoning, connect it quickly. See if the motor can turn? She used to be called Little Ningzi, but now she's called Xiaoning. It seems that women who are about to get married are generally more polite than before. Okay. Wait. Okay. Woo. Woo. It turned. It turned. This small motor can rotate stably, which means that our rectifier circuit is finally successful. When Li Zixuan approached Mo Lingwei's laboratory, he heard such a conversation coming from inside. Finally, he heard Mo Lingwei's cheers. He couldn't help but feel happy. Could it be that the electronic diode was made? So he quickly quickened his pace and walked into the laboratory. Shouting, "Ink Girl, you guys made the electronic diode?" After entering the laboratory, Li Zixuan saw Mo Lingwei and Yin Xiaoning giggling at the small DC motor spinning crazily on the table. "Ah, Yamacho, you're here." Hearing Li Zixuan's voice, Mo Lingwei quickly stood up to greet him. Then, she said excitedly, "Yamacho, Xiaoning and I not only made the electronic diode, but also the rectifier circuit. We tried it with a small DC motor just now, and it's totally feasible. In the future, as long as we match it with the rectifier circuit, we can directly use AC to charge the battery." Li Zixuan went forward to take a look. Seeing that the motor's rotor was rotating stably, he nodded and said, "Okay, I didn't expect you to make the diode so quickly. I thought you would make the DC generator first, then study how to make the diode." Mo Lingwei glanced at Yin Xiaoning and said embarrassedly, "I originally planned to do so, but a few days ago, Xiaoning was injured by me. Even if I made the DC generator, he couldn't accompany me to the dam to verify it. So, I took care of him in the workshop while trying to make the electronic diode that Yamacho mentioned. I didn't expect the two of us to really make it." Looking at the bright-eyed girl in front of him, Li Zixuan couldn't help but give her a thumbs up and said, "Ink Girl's talent in physics is really admirable. I'm afraid that many men can't even compare to 1/10 of you." Yin Xiaoning was instantly displeased. Hey, Xiao Xian, why do I feel like you're implying something? Your many men probably includes me, right? Li Zixuan smiled and said, "How is that possible? Xiaoning, your talent isn't any worse than Ink Girl's. Isn't that right, Ink Girl?" Mo Lingwei heard and looked at Yin Xiaoning with a slightly threatening gaze. Yin Xiaoning quivered and quickly said, No. Xiao Xian, what are you talking about? My talent is still a little worse than Wei Er's." Hee. Li Zixuan was instantly speechless. He thought to himself that his brother would definitely be a henpecked husband in the future. "Humph, that's more like it." Mo Lingwei snorted and nodded with satisfaction. Li Zixuan looked at Yin Xiaoning and asked, "Xiaoning, how's your recovery? Will it delay the wedding at the end of the month?" Hearing this, Mo Lingwei's face instantly turned red, but Yin Xiaoning's expression froze, and he said embarrassedly, You even know about Yamacho? Don't worry, I'm fine now. It shouldn't delay the wedding." The reason why the wedding date was so tight was all his own fault. If he hadn't pretended to be fine in front of Yin Lied and said that he only had a small injury, Yin Lied definitely wouldn't have chosen the wedding date between him and Mo Lingwei so close. But now that things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. He had to complete the arranged marriage, even if he had to kneel down. Li Zixuan looked at Yin Xiaoning's expression and instantly understood. However, this was Yin Xiaoning's family matter, so he couldn't interfere. After all, even an upright official would find it difficult to settle a family matter. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I will ask Pri-sun to do more acupuncture and massage for you these few days. With the help of medicinal wine, it should be able to speed up the recovery of your waist and back. However, you have to be careful not to do any strenuous exercise to avoid adding more injuries to your injury." Today was the 4th of June, and there were only slightly more than 20 days until the end of June. However, generally speaking, it would take 100 days for bones and tendons to recover. In this special period, they could only use special methods. Yin Xiaoning didn't refuse. He nodded and said, Thank you very much. Li Zixuan couldn't help but laugh and scold. Go away. You don't have to be so polite with me. Seeing that the two of you are finally together, as your brother, I'm very happy for you. Don't worry, when the two of you get married, I will definitely give you a big gift. When she heard Li Zixuan say big gift, Mo Lingwei, who was at the side, couldn't care less about being shy. She cast her gaze on Li Zixuan. Yin Xiaoning's eyes also lit up and said directly, Big gift? Xiao Xian, what big gift? Take it out and let us see it first. If it doesn't suit us, you still have time to change it, right? Li Zixuan glared at this shameless guy and said, Scram, do you want it or not? This person who received the gift was still being picky. If he wasn't shameless, what else could he be? No, Xiao Xian, why are you being so unreasonable? You should at least make the recipient satisfied when you give gift, right? Otherwise, why would you give a gift? Yin Xiaoning started to act shamelessly. It had to be said that this guy had become even more naughty after spending so much time with Mo Lingwei. Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and said, Okay, then I won't give it to you. Hey, don't. Let's talk nicely. Yin Xiaoning hurriedly said. The person in front of him was a real rich person. If he wanted to give a big gift, it would definitely not be small. Yin Xiaoning would rather not miss it. Li Zixuan couldn't be bothered to banter with this guy. He turned to look at Mo Lingwei and said, Since the diodes have been made, it means that Mr. Wang's electrolysis workshop can operate normally. I'll have to trouble Ink Girl to help Mr. Wang renovate the electrolysis workshop these 2 days. Also, now that we can connect to the alternating current to charge the batteries, it means that the conditions for the batteries to be used on a large scale are ripe. Ink Girl, you need to arrange for the craftsman to make a batch of batteries as soon as possible as a backup. Mo Lingwei said seriously, Yes. Yamacho. After a pause, she asked, Yamacho, are we still making the DC generator? Li Zixuan pondered for a moment and said, Yes. Of course we're going to make it, but you don't have to. It's relatively simple. Qin from the academy will come to the workshop to help out. You can let her do this work. His Highness King Wei is coming to the workshop? Mo Lingwei immediately exclaimed when she heard this. Although the Mo family had lived in a remote place for a long time and did not care about worldly affairs and would not care about the royal power, but after entering the secular world last year, the Mo family slowly began to fear the royal power. Hearing Li Zixuan's intention to let Li Tai come over to be her student, how could Mo Lingwei accept it in such a short time? Chapter 1450. Qin is very interested in electricity and car making, but this knowledge can't be fully grasped by reading books. Only by experiencing it personally can one have a deep impression of it. It's a good thing that he's willing to come to the workshop to practice. Ink Girl, you're getting married to Xiaoning at the end of the month. Use these few days to teach Qin. With his talent, he should be able to understand the principles of generators, motors, and batteries very quickly. Li Zixuan instructed Mo Lingwei in the laboratory of the new workshop. Yamacho, don't worry. I'll teach Prince Wei well. Mo Lingwei hesitated for a moment before replying. Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes as if he could see Mo Lingwei's worries. He smiled and said, In the academy, there are only teachers and students. There's no Prince Wei, so Ink Girl, don't feel pressured. In general, Qin is very easy to get along with. If you don't believe me, you can ask Xiaoning. Yin Xiaoning quickly nodded and said, Wei don't worry. Qin and I are very close. If there's anything, just let me handle it. Mo Lingwei was slightly relieved this time. Besides, she wasn't someone who was afraid of trouble. After hearing Li Zixuan and Yin Xiaoning's words, she smiled and said, That's fine. If Prince Wei doesn't listen to my teachings, then don't blame me for hitting his palm as a teacher. There was even a hint of excitement in her words. She must be excited that she could hit a prince's palm. Li Zixuan and Yin Xiaoning couldn't help but look at each other, speechless. They had almost forgotten that although the lady in front of them looked beautiful, there was a devil in her heart. Now that things had come to this, They could only pray for that little fatty Li Tai in their hearts. What? The Marquis of Yong, and wants to join the Black Armored Army? How can that be? He's just a kid who hasn't even seen human blood. How can he join the Black Armored Army? If he wants to gain merit, he could just go to the other camps in the capital. But if he wants to join the Black Armored Army, I won't allow it. In the afternoon, in the main hall of Duke Fan's mansion in Chong and City, the angry roar of a middle-aged man could be heard. The master of the Duke Fan mansion was Duan Jishuan. In the 9th year of Wuda, Crown Prince Li Jiansheng wanted to murder Li Er. He bribed Duan Jishuan with a large sum of money in an attempt to lure him into submission. Duan Jishuan refused to accept it and informed Li Er of this matter. Afterwards, together with Yuchi Jingda and the others, he started the Black Tortoise Gate Rebellion and killed Li Jiansheng and Li Yuanji. Not long after, Li Er ascended the throne. As the #1 contributor to the Black Tortoise Gate, Duan Jishuan was promoted to the position of Great General of the Left Valiant Guard and was conferred the title of Duke of Fan. Since Duan Jishuan had participated in the formation of the Black Armored Army and Li Er trusted him, he was basically the one in charge of the Black Armored Army. Xingong, the Marquis of Yong, and did not come to the Black Armored Army to gain military merits. He has already become a Marquis at such a young age. Why would he need military merits? He is here to help the Black Armored Army adapt to the new armor. Moreover, he is not a child who has never seen human blood. Last year, he killed more than 50 bandits at the Bloodwind Stockade alone. His martial arts are unparalleled among the younger generation. At this time, Duan Jishuan's voice came from the main hall. Then, the middle-aged man snorted again. Humph. Those were just small bandits who gathered in the mountains. Killing them was as easy as chopping vegetables. What is there to brag about? Duan Jishuan said in a deep voice, "What about the battle at Snake Spirit Mountain?" At that time, the 7 cultivators of True Virtue sect had a late-stage Grandmaster and a peak Grandmaster, as well as thousands of disciples. However, Li Zishuan destroyed the entire 7 cultivators of True Virtue sect in one night. To put it bluntly, with his strength, I'm afraid that even you and I are no match for him. You are praising others and diminishing our own prestige. I don't believe that a teenager like him can be so powerful. Isn't it just because he was taught by a famous teacher since he was young? No matter how high his realm is, it is still unstable. Compared to us veterans who have experienced hundreds of battles, he is still too young. In short, I don't agree to let a child join the Black Armored Army. Hearing this, Duan Jishuan's voice turned cold. Xingong, this is not a matter of whether you agree or not. This is the Emperor's decree. Are you going to defy the decree? If you really have something to say, go to the palace and tell the Emperor directly after you recover. Fine, I'll say it. The glory of the Black Armored Army today is built on the blood and bones of countless soldiers. I will not allow a child to criticize us. Goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man dressed in a Crimson Warrior's uniform walked out of the main hall. After leaving Duke Fan's mansion, he left directly. This stubborn old man. In the main hall, Duan Jishuan sat on the seat of honor and muttered to himself. From the frown on his face, it could be seen that the middle-aged man's attitude just now had put him in a difficult position. Master, Marquis Yong requests an audience. After some time, a person who looked like a housekeeper walked up and said carefully to Duan Jishuan, who was deep in thought. Hearing this, Duan Jishuan was shocked and immediately recovered from his deep thoughts. He hurriedly said, "Quick, invite him in." No matter what others thought, Duan Jishuan admired Li Zishuan. That was why he spoke up for Li Zishuan just now. "Yes, master." The housekeeper replied and cupped his hands and prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, Duan Jishuan waved his hand and said, "Wait, it is better for me to go out and welcome him personally. In the future, when Marquis Yong comes, do not report. Invite him directly to the side hall. If I am not in the mansion, immediately send someone to report to the army camp." "I understand." The steward hurriedly complied, but in his heart, he was astonished at the importance his master placed on Li Zishuan, this new noble of the imperial court. Ha! Marquis Yong, Anne's presence brings light to my humble abode. The servants are not sensible. Marquis Yong, and please don't blame them. Arriving at the entrance of the mansion, Duan Jishuan walked towards Li Zeshuan with a face full of enthusiasm and said with a smile. Li Zeshuan cupped his hands and returned a greeting. He smiled and said, General Duan must be joking. I came uninvited. I hope General Duan will not take offense. Speaking of which, before this, he did not know where Duan Jishuan lived. This was only when he went to the academy to ask Cheng Chumo in the afternoon. This cannot be blamed on him. The main reason was that he was not in the imperial court for many years. He only knew the names of many officials. As for where they lived, he most likely did not know. This Duke Fan mansion was not big, let alone grand. It looked about the same as Li Zeshuan's mansion in Yongla District. However, this also showed that Duan Jishuan was a low-key person who did not like to be extravagant. At this moment, Duan Jishuan waved his hand and said, Ha ha, Marquis Yong, what are you saying? Before long, you and I will be colleagues. Aren't you treating me as an outsider? Come, come, come. Let's talk inside. Housekeeper, quickly get someone to serve tea. Under Duan Jishuan's beckoning, Li Zeshuan came to the front hall of the Duan mansion. It was also the place where Duan Jishuan and the other middle-aged man had an argument. After a brief exchange of greetings, the servants of the Duan mansion brought a pot of hot tea. After pouring a cup for Li Zeshuan and Duan Jishuan, they left. Oh, this is divine tea. Li Zeshuan was not interested in other people's tea. However, after smelling the tea fragrance in the air, he could not help but exclaim, Ha! This is something that I asked someone to buy from Lantian County. Speaking of this Duan has to say that Marquis Yong and is too stingy. You actually only sell the good stuff in Lantian County. Chang and City either doesn't have it, or the supply is very small. You've almost driven the high officials and dignitaries of Chang and City crazy. Duan Jishuan said, half-jokingly. Li Zeshuan cupped his hands and said, General Duan is right. This junior will take note in the future. However, this junior has something to ask of General Duan today. Duan Jishuan perked up and said, Please speak. Marquis Yong in. Li Zeshuan replied, Here's the thing. The workshop at Chitu Pavilion is currently working hard to create armor for the Black Armored Army. However, in order to maximize the effectiveness of the new armor, it has to fit the soldiers' bodies. Therefore, I would like to send some tailors to the Black Armored Army's camp to measure the soldiers' bodies. I hope that General Duan can accommodate us. Duan Jishuan could not help but narrow his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, So that's the case. However, the Black Armored Army camp is a restricted area. Ordinary people are not allowed to enter. How about this? I will instruct the generals of each camp to measure the height and weight of the soldiers and pass the results to you. How about that? Li Zeshuan did not suspect anything when he heard that. He nodded and said, Sure, I will write down the measurements on a piece of paper. General Duan, you can ask the soldiers to fill in the data when the time comes. No problem. Duan Jishuan nodded and ordered someone to get a pen and paper. After a while, Li Zeshuan picked up the pen, and a line of small words appeared on the paper. Duan Jishuan took a closer look and could not help but exclaim, Height, weight, shoulder width, waist circumference, waist circumference, waist circumference. This needs to be measured for so many things. Li Zeshuan smiled and said, That's natural. This is also to ensure that the plate armor made will fit the soldiers' bodies better. Otherwise, the plate armor will affect the soldiers' movements on the battlefield. Duan Jishuan nodded thoughtfully. After a while, he frowned and asked, Although this makes sense, won't this affect the speed of your workshop's craftsmen? Li Zeshuan shook his head. There will definitely be an impact. However, it's not impossible to overcome it. Don't worry, General Duan. The interesting pavilion workshop is already producing the armor at full capacity. It is estimated that within 2 months, they will be able to produce 5,000 sets of armor, vanadium steel horse lances, vanadium steel horse armor, and horseshoes. 2 months? So fast. When Duan Jishuan heard this, he couldn't help but exclaim, although this Duan has never forged armor before. I have heard people say that a skilled craftsman would need at least 3 days to forge a set of radiant armor. The structure of the armor is more complicated than the Mingguang armor. It is amazing that your workshop can make 5,000 sets in 2 months. Li Zixuan heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Duan Jixuan say so fast and not so slow. Then he said half-jokingly, as long as General Duan doesn't think it's too slow. In truth, this is the normal speed of the Oddity Pavilion's workshop. We have the most advanced equipment, the best technology, and the best craftsmen, so we naturally have the fastest speed and the highest quality. Otherwise, the products of the Oddity Pavilion wouldn't be so popular throughout the Great Tang. Duan Jixuan nodded in agreement and said with emotion, "That's indeed the case. In less than a year, the interesting pavilion workshop has grown from a small workshop to the largest in the Tang Empire. Not even the Imperial Palace's general supervisor can compare. In the end, it is all thanks to Marquis Yong's talent. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, the interesting pavilion workshop would not be able to reach its current scale. General Duan overpraises me." Li Zixuan smiled. Then he stood up and said, "I've achieved my goal today. It's getting late now, so I'll take my leave first. Once the matters at the academy and workshop are settled, I will report to the Black Armored Army's camp." Duan Jixuan's expression froze for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. He gave an unnatural smile and said, Good. Marquis Yong, and you don't have to worry about entering the camp. His Majesty has also said that you have to take care of both the academy and the camp." "I understand." Although Duan Jixuan's expression changed quickly, it did not escape Li Zixuan's eyes. Li Zixuan looked at Duan Jixuan and clasped his hands. "Thank you for your understanding, General Duan. However, the matters at the camp are more important. After I settle the matters at the academy, I will return to the camp as soon as possible. I hope that General Duan can calculate the figures of the soldiers as soon as possible." Duan Jixuan nodded. I will arrange for someone to do it as soon as possible." Li Zixuan clasped his hands and took his leave. "Your Highness, the project from last month have been sorted out. Our bank made a total profit of 35,800 Tang yuan. After deducting the costs, we made a net profit of 31,400 Tang yuan. Lantian District, Yanhuang Bank, Back Hall." A middle-aged scholar held a thick account book and bowed to Li Ku. Back then, Li Zixuan gave Li Ku special treatment and imparted some advanced financial knowledge to Li Ku. Then, he arranged for Li Ku to go to the Yanhuang Bank in Lantian County to gain experience. After all, knowledge on paper is shallow, but experience is necessary. Only through practice would Li Ku understand the true way of the economy. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Song." Li Ku nodded. Then he stood up and walked to Mr. Song. He stretched out his hand and said, "Let me see the account book." "Yes, Your Highness." Mr. Song's body trembled inexplicably, but he quickly returned to normal. After hesitating for a moment, he handed the account book to Li Ku. Li Ku took the account book, turned around, and returned to the desk. He flipped through it in front of Mr. Song. The accounts of Yanhuang Bank were recorded using the double-entry bookkeeping method invented by Li Zixuan. It was very clear. In addition, Li Ku was very talented in mathematics and was very sensitive to numbers. Therefore, when he flipped through the account book, he could read 10 lines at a glance. Mr. Song, why is there no record of the payment of 500 Tang yuan on the 15th of April? Also, on the 20th of April, 300 Tang yuan, and on the 28th of April, 700 Tang yuan. Where did all this money go? After a moment, Li Ku frowned and said with an unpleasant expression, Chapter 1451. Your Highness, this, Lantian County, Back Hall of the Yanhuang Bank. Faced with Li Ku's questioning, Mr. Song's face turned red. He wanted to explain, but in the end he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. His surname was Song, and his name was Simon. He could be considered as Li Ku's #1 accountant. Seeing this, Li Ke walked in front of Song Siming and said with a gloomy face, "Mr. Song, you should know better than anyone that this Yanhuang Bank does not belong to me. Li Ke, it belongs to my father, the Marquis of Yong and the other nobles. The annual profits of the bank also do not go into my pocket. Last month's profits were reduced by a total of 1,500 Tang yuan. How do you want me to explain this to my father? How do I explain this to the Marquis of Yong and the other nobles?" When Li Zishuan opened the bank, in order to increase the capital of the bank and increase the credibility of the bank, not only did he pull the royal family, even Qin Xiong, Chang Yaojin, Zhang Sun Wuji, and the other nobles all generously donated to buy the shares of the Yanhuang Bank. Therefore, in theory, the annual profits of the bank should be distributed according to everyone's shares. Although Li Ke was now in charge of the management rights of the Lantian County Bank, he did not have the right to distribute the profits of the bank. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became oppressive. A layer of sweat gradually appeared on Song Siming's forehead, but even so, he did not say anything to explain himself. He just lowered his head, as if he had done something wrong, and stood quietly in front of Li Ke. Facing such a stubborn old man, Li Ke was a little angry. If it was another person in a higher position, they would probably directly lock this old man up for corruption and interrogate him severely. However, Li Ke knew the character of the old man in front of him. He knew that the other party would definitely not ruin his reputation for such a small amount of money. After a moment of silence, Li Ke opened his mouth again and said, "Mr. Song, this is not a small matter. You should not think of taking responsibility for it yourself. I, Li Ke, do not wrongly accuse a good person, but also will not let a bad person go. Mr. Song, please tell me who exactly used the 1,500 Tang yuan. Otherwise, when this prince investigates thoroughly, no matter who it is, it won't look good for anyone's face." Hearing Li Ke's words, Song Siming's body trembled. After a moment of hesitation, he finally opened his mouth and said, "Your Highness, this matter must not be made public because the person who embezzled the money is the sixth prince." Li Ke's expression changed. His originally gloomy little face suddenly became like the sky before a storm. Dark clouds gathered. "You mean Xiao Xiao? How dare he?" After taking a deep breath, Li Ke said in disbelief, "The so-called sixth prince was Li Er's sixth son. His name was Li Ke, and he was born from Yangfei. He was Li Ke's younger brother from the same mother. Because Li Ke was not yet 10 years old and had a mischievous personality and was ignorant and incompetent, he was not favored by Li Er. Thus, he did not have an official title. According to the normal course of history, Li Ke would only be conferred the title of King Liang in the 5th year of Zhengguan's reign. Right now, this troublesome brat was doing his best to cause trouble for the imperial family. In official history, Li Er had once reprimanded Li Ke like this: "Beasts can be tamed after being trained. Iron and stone can be smelted and sculpted to be made into tools. People like Li Ke are worse than beasts and iron and stone." From this, it could be seen how much Li Er loathed this child. At this time, Song Siming said with a bitter face, "Your Highness, last month, the sixth prince and His Highness King Lu came to this Song many times, saying that they needed to withdraw a sum of money urgently. This old man also knew that the money in this bank could not be used, so I flatly refused. However, the sixth prince threatened this old man, saying that Your Highness was in charge of the entire bank and that he was Your Highness's younger brother, so it was no big deal for him to withdraw a bit of money. He also said that if this old man did not give him the money, he would sell this old man's little granddaughter to 100 Flowers Tower. The sixth prince's past misdeeds were all over the place, so how could this old man dare to risk my granddaughter? Your Highness, this old man's granddaughter is only 10 years old." At this point, Song Siming's old face was filled with shame and fear. Bastard! Bastard! Xiao Gue actually dares to commit such atrocities. When Li Ke heard this, even though the other party was his younger brother from the same mother, he could not help but curse angrily. After cursing, he looked at Song Siming and said, "Why didn't Mr. Song tell me about this earlier?" Song Siming smiled bitterly and said, "Your Highness, the sixth prince also said that if this old man told you about this matter, not only would he sell my granddaughter, he would also break the legs of my entire family. This old man will resign today, Your Highness, and bring my entire family to another place to avoid disaster before the sky turns dark." Seeing that his loyal subordinate had been forced to resign and leave, Li Ke could no longer hold it in and said in a deep voice, "Brother Li, don't worry. Mr. Song, you can't go anywhere. This prince promises you today that as long as this prince is alive, as long as you do not violate the laws of the great Tang Empire, nothing will happen to you and your family. This prince swears to the heavens." The ancients placed great importance on oaths. Seeing that the great king of Shu was actually swearing on his behalf, Song Siming was instantly moved. He hurriedly said, "Your Highness, you are too kind. Your Highness has always been generous and loyal to others. This old man naturally believes in Your Highness." Only then was Li Ke relieved. He nodded, then turned and shouted outside the door, "Guards, go and capture this prince's disappointing younger brother." He used the word capture and not invite or bring. It was enough to see how angry Li Ke was at this moment. "Yes, Your Highness." The two guards who came in could not help but look at each other, but seeing Li Ke's gloomy face, they could only quickly salute and accept the order. Smack! Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the sound of a flower pot falling to the ground came from the courtyard outside the house, followed by a series of hurried footsteps that gradually faded away. Li Ke frowned and said to the two guards, "Quickly go and see what's going on outside." "Yes." The two quickly walked out of the room. A moment later, "How dare you? Let go of this prince. Quickly let go of this prince. Otherwise, this prince will kill your entire family. This matter has nothing to do with this prince. If you want to capture someone, capture Li Ke. Why are you capturing me? Quickly let go. Otherwise, do you believe that this prince will not let you see tomorrow's sun?" Amidst the commotion, two of Li Ke's guards walked in with two teenagers in tow. "Your Highness, the commotion outside the house just now was caused by the sixth prince and Prince Lu. They should have just arrived at the bank." One of the guards put down Li Ke and saluted Li Ke. Speaking of which, these two children were unlucky. They had planned to use the same trick today and come to the bank to extort a sum of money from Song Siming. They did not expect to see Li Ke lecturing Song Siming when they arrived at the bank. It was fine if he was lecturing Song Siming, but the content of the lecture just so happened to include them. After eavesdropping for a while, they saw that the situation was not good and immediately fled. However, when Li Yuanchang turned around, he accidentally knocked over a flower pot beside him, which alerted Li Ke inside the house. Li Ke's gaze was gloomy. He nodded at the two guards and said, Both of you can leave first." "Yes, sir." The more one knew about the imperial family's matters, the faster one would die. The two guards had no intention of listening in at all. When they heard that, they hurriedly left as if they had been pardoned. Third brother." After the two guards left the room, Li Ke hesitated for a moment, raised his head, and looked at Li Ke fearfully as he spoke weakly. Although he was usually quite a scoundrel and often relied on his father as the emperor to cause trouble everywhere, he was not afraid of anything. However, as the saying goes, everything has its vanquisher. Li Ke was still quite afraid of this elder brother of his who shared the same mother. Li Yuanchang stood there calmly and did not say anything. According to seniority, he was Li Ke and Li Ke's imperial uncle, so he was not afraid of Li Ke. Li Ke stared at his younger brother from the same mother without saying a word. Just as Li Ke could not take it anymore, he heard Li Ke say coldly, "Apologize to Mr. Song immediately." The cold voice seemed to have no warmth, and there was no room for negotiation. "What? Third brother, you want me to apologize to this rotten old man? Impossible. I'm a prince. Who does he think he is?" Hearing this, Li Ke exclaimed in disbelief. Song Siming narrowed his eyes and pretended not to hear Li Ke's rude words. Bam! However, Li Ke could not pretend not to hear. He slammed the table angrily and stood up. Bastard! Shut up! How did Imperial Father teach us? He taught us to be benevolent, humble, kind, and gentle. Look at you now. How are you any different from those hooligans on the streets? Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Song, or I will return to the palace today and report everything you did to Father. We'll see how Father will punish you then. Hey, don't. Third brother, please don't tell Father. Apologize. I will apologize to Mr. Song right now. When Li Gui heard this, he immediately panicked and said hurriedly. The person he feared the most in this world, other than Li Ku, was Li Er. Li Er was an emperor on horseback. He had been on the battlefield and killed people before. If Li Ku made a mistake, Li Er did not even need to lift a finger. He just needed to glare at him coldly, and Li Ku would not be able to take it. Therefore, when he heard that Li Ku wanted to report the matter to Li Er, this little bastard immediately gave in. Your Highness, I am just a commoner. How can I accept the Six Princes' apology? Please take back your order, Your Highness. Song Simon cupped his fists and said to Li Ku, "Oomph, old man, at least you know what's good for you." Before Li Ku could say anything, Li Ku could not help but whisper. Although his voice was soft, Li Ku, who had sharp ears, heard it clearly. Li Ku said with a livid expression, "Li Ku, Mr. Song is my right-hand man. If you dare to disrespect him again, don't blame me for not acknowledging you as my younger brother." These words were a little harsh. As a princess of the previous dynasty, Yang Fei's status in the palace was already awkward. Li Ku usually did whatever he wanted outside because he had a brother who was favored by Li Er. Third brother, please calm down. I know my mistake. Li Ku hurriedly begged for mercy. When he saw that Li Ku was unmoved, he quickly bowed to Song Simon and said, "Mr. Song, I'm sorry. I have offended you in the past. Please forgive me, Mr. Song." Li Yuanchang, who was standing at the side, revealed a surprised expression when he saw Li Yu admit defeat. Song Simon only wanted his family to be safe. He did not have the guts to be angry with Li Ku. Before Li Ku could bow, he had already reached out to support Li Ku. "Your Highness, please don't. Please don't. This old man can't bear it." "Ha! I've already apologized and watched the show. Little Ku, your uncle still has some things to do in the palace. I'll take my leave first." Li Ku's problem was temporarily resolved. Li Yuanchang knew that Li Ku might turn to him next, so he hurriedly wanted to leave. "Uncle, please wait," Li Ku hurriedly said. Although the young man in front of him was born in the same year as him, there was still seniority. No matter what, he had to call him uncle. This was not a rule that could be messed up in any dynasty. "What? Little Ku, do you also want me to apologize to this old man?" Li Yuanchang stopped and looked at Li Ku with a mischievous expression. This little rascal was basically the same kind of trash as Li Ku. From the words he said, it was obvious that he was worse than Li Ku. Li Ku shook his head and said, "Uncle, you worry too much. Ku just wants to ask, where did you and Little Ku use the 1,500 Tang yuan that you and Little Ku transferred for the bank last month?" Li Yuanchang and Li Ku looked at each other. Their expressions suddenly became a little unnatural. However, the unnatural expression on Li Yuanchang's face disappeared in an instant. He said as if nothing had happened, Hey, Little Ku, don't slander me and sully my innocence. What 1,500 Tang yuan? Why don't I know about it? This matter should be done by Little Ku. If you want to ask him. What does it have to do with me?" Being heartlessly betrayed by his own teammate, Li Ku's face turned pale. He looked at Li Yuanchang's side profile and said in disbelief, "Uncle, you what? What? Did I say something wrong? Didn't you go to the bank last month to withdraw money from Mr. Song?" Li Yuanchang stared and said. After he said that, he turned his eyes and looked at Li Ku again, saying, "Little Ku, maybe Little Ku is a little tight on money recently, so he wanted to borrow some money from Mr. Song. It's not like he won't return it. Why do you have to be so serious?" Li Yuanchang's face was black for a while, then red for a while. Not only did he remove himself from the situation, he also secretly sold Li Ku to make the other party feel grateful to him. It had to be said that this move of his was really good. Sure enough, Li Ku's eyes, which were filled with resentment before, now had a faint trace of gratitude in them. He turned to Li Ku and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Third brother, this money is only borrowed from Mr. Song. I will definitely return it in the future. Don't be so stubborn." Li Ku was unmoved. He said in a low voice, "Little Ku, if you still treat me as a brother today, tell me honestly, what did you do with so much money?" Hearing Li Ku's question, Li Ku's eyes suddenly dimmed. At this time, Li Yuanchang took the opportunity to say, "Haha. Little Ku, if you two brothers have something to talk about, you could talk about it. Uncle, I really have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." After that, he lifted his feet and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, at this time, a voice full of energy came from the door. "If you two don't explain things clearly today, you can't go anywhere." Chapter 1452. Li Yong, Marquis Yong, Yinwang Bank. Just as Li Yuanchang was about to take the opportunity to slip away, a cold voice sent him into the abyss. Just as the voice fell, Li Yuanchang saw a person who often gave him nightmares stride in. Who else could it be but Li Zishuan? Back then, Li Yuanchang ordered the evil servant to cause trouble at the foot of Yinshan. After being taught a lesson by Li Zishuan, he ran back to Li Yuan to complain. Li Yuan had a son late and was rather doting on Li Yuanchang, his youngest son. After hearing the news, he wanted to take revenge for his son, who knew that after Li Zishuan saw Li Yuan, not only was he not scared to the point of kneeling and begging for mercy, he resolved the crisis with a few words and scared Li Yuanchang to the point of wetting his pants. Since then, Li Yuanchang realized that Li Yuan did not seem to dote on him as much. In the past, he could easily get money and people from Li Yuan, but now it was very difficult to get them. This made Li Yuanchang very confused and fearful. Of course, towards the man who caused all this, Li Zishuan, Li Yuanchang's heart was filled with resentment and fear. After several months, seeing Li Zishuan again, the shadow of fear in Li Yuanchang's heart did not fade. Instead, it grew stronger to the point that he stuttered when speaking. "Yamacho." Seeing Li Zishuan arrive, Li Ku hurriedly went forward to greet him and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Li Zishuan nodded, then looked at Li Yuanchang lightly and said, "Your Highness King Lu, it's really been a long time. I didn't expect that the great King Lu would be interested in a mere 1,500 strings of coins." After returning from Chang'an City, he passed by Yinwang Bank in Lantian County. His heart moved, and he wanted to come in and see how Li Ku was doing in the bank. Before he went to the Black Armored Army, he wanted to straighten out all the errands on him, such as the workshop and Yinhuang Bank. Once Li Zishuan went to the barracks, he would have less time to do these chores. That was why Li Zishuan had been busy running around for the past few days. However, he did not expect that there would be a case of someone embezzling public funds in Yinhuang Bank. Moreover, the person who embezzled public funds was that little bastard Li Yuanchang. Li Ku could handle Li Gu, but because of the difference in seniority, he couldn't handle Li Zishuan. Therefore, Li Zishuan stepped in. Yinhuang Bank was basically equivalent to a modern bank or even a central bank. It would never allow anyone to embezzle public funds. This was because not only would it be irresponsible to the shareholders of the bank, it would also be irresponsible to the people who deposited their money in the bank. Apart from that, it would also be a blow to Tang Yuan's credibility in the entire Tang Dynasty. Li Zishuan would never allow such a thing to happen. What 1,500 strings of cash? Marquis Owen, what are you saying? I don't understand. Li Yuanchang's face paled as he tried to defend himself. This was really being stubborn, even in the face of death. Li Zishuan's eyes narrowed as he said in a deep voice, "Your Highness King Lu, don't pretend to be confused. Today, I will say these words. If you don't clearly explain the 1,500 strings of cash, no one can leave. When the time comes, I will find His Majesty or the retired emperor to judge. Or you can think about it. Will those nobles who invested in Yinhuang Bank let you off?" As he finished speaking, Li Zishuan's voice gradually turned cold. Li Yuanchang and Li Gu couldn't help but shiver. After his expression changed, Li Yuanchang opened his mouth and said, "Isn't it just 1,500 strings of cash? I will send someone to return it to you when I return. This money was originally borrowed from Mr. Song. Today, I will return it all to you. In the future, don't bother us anymore." He had thought it through. Rather than completely falling out with Li Zishuan and causing a huge ruckus, he might as well grit his teeth and return the money. He was clear in his heart that even if this matter reached his father, Li Yuan, it would not end well. After all, he was not in the right. Moreover, the shareholders of the Yinhuang Chamber of Commerce were all nobles of the imperial court. He had affected the interests of so many people, Li Er would not let him off. Li Zishuan nodded and said, "It is only right to repay debts. The money that your Highness King Lu owes should naturally be returned. However, where did you use the 1,500 strings of cash that you borrowed earlier?" Hearing this, Li Yuanchang evasively said, "This Marquis Yonin, you don't have to care. Don't worry, when I return to the palace, I will immediately send someone to send the money to you." Li Zishuan lightly said, "Why can't I care? I have to confirm whether the 1,500 strings of cash are still there or not. Or rather, I doubt your Highness King Lu's ability to repay the debt." Originally, in Li Zishuan's impression, Li Yuanchang was still very rich. However, thinking about how this little bastard had colluded with Li Zishuan to extort money from the bank, Li Zishuan concluded that this little bastard was definitely not doing as well as before. Otherwise, why would he do such a thing? Li Yuanchang's face was instantly filled with anger. He angrily said, "What a joke. A mere 1,500 strings of cash. I don't even care about it. Marquis Yonin, don't go too far." Li Zishuan heard this and sneered. "Oh? Since your Highness King Lu is so rich, why did you come to the bank to extort money from Mr. Song last month?" "You." Li Yuanchang was instantly rendered speechless. At this moment, Li Ke looked at Li Zhe and said earnestly, "Xiao Li, tell me the truth. What did you use the money for? Otherwise, if you commit another crime in the future, I will definitely not plead with Imperial Father and Imperial Mother on your behalf." Li Zhe's heart was already shaken when he saw his Imperial uncle, whom he relied heavily on, being completely suppressed by Li Zishuan. Now that he heard Li Ke's words, how could he bear it? He hurriedly grabbed Li Ke's arm and said with a sobbing tone, third brother, I was wrong. I was wrong. Don't ignore me." Li Zhe, seeing that Li Zhe was about to give in, Li Yuanchang panicked and hurriedly stopped him. Your Highness King Lu, don't go too far." Li Zishuan grunted and said coldly. Li Yuanchang had seen Li Zishuan's martial prowess. Sensing the other party's unfriendly gaze, he hurriedly shrunk his neck and didn't dare to say another word. Li Ke struck while the iron was hot. "Xiao Li, if you tell me now, I can still help you. If you don't, Yamacho and I can find out on our own. But when that time comes, no one can help you. Imperial Father and Imperial Mother can't either. Third brother, I'll tell you. Li Zhe suddenly panicked. He hurriedly said, "Last month, Imperial Uncle and I went to bet on football. At first, we won more than 2,000 strings of cash, but then we lost all of it. Even our own capital of more than 2,000 strings of cash was lost. Later, Imperial Uncle and I came up with an idea. We went to the owners of the teams and threatened them in advance before the game that they must lose. Then we would take the opportunity to bet on losing. We would definitely make a lot of money, but you also need capital to bet on losing. At that time, Imperial Uncle and I lost all our money. Later, Imperial Uncle said that third brother, you were on duty at Yinhuang Bank and made a lot of money every day. I came to the bank to look for third brother. Coincidentally, you weren't there on May 15th, so I borrowed 500 strings of cash from Mr. Song. Bet on football." Li Ke's eyes widened in shock when he heard this. He scolded with a face full of resentment. "It's fine if you bet on football, but you actually went to threaten the owners of the teams to fix the game? Xiao Zhe, how dare you?" On the side, Li Zishuan's expression could not help but turn serious. He had never imagined that a misappropriation of public funds would actually involve a series of major cases of corruption in football. And he had another identity, which was the president of the Tang Football Association. Therefore, this matter was even more important to him. Li Yuanchang's face was now ashen. He had already decided to go all out, but he still looked at Lija angrily from time to time. Third brother, I didn't do it on purpose. I just wanted to earn some money so that imperial concubine mother wouldn't treat me like a child anymore. I also wanted to buy a few new clothes and jewelry for imperial concubine mother, Lija said with a sobbing tone. Hearing the second half of Lija's sentence, Lika's cold eyes couldn't help but soften. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "A gentleman loves money, but he gets it in the right way. If you use this method, no matter how much money you earn, Imperial Mother and I will look down on you. Imperial Mother won't want the clothes and jewelry you bought with your ill-gotten money. In a palace, danger is everywhere. Imperial Mother is cautious every day, afraid of getting involved in trouble. But you, on the other hand, did such a thing outside to smear Imperial Mother's reputation. Do you still have a heart of loyalty, filial piety, and benevolence?" Third brother, I was wrong. I was wrong. Lija was ashamed by Li Ke's words and could only admit his mistakes. Li Zixuan picked up the account book on the table next to him. With his mathematical attainments and mental calculation ability, he could easily find the problem in the account book. After a while, he looked at Lija and asked, "Six Prince, you withdrew 500 and 300 Tang Yuan from the bank on the 15th and 20th of May. According to what you said just now, you should be able to make a lot of money by threatening the owners of the teams to fix the game. But why did you withdraw 700 Tang Yuan from the bank on the 28th of May? Were you still short of money at that time?" Lija knew that Li Ke respected Li Zixuan very much, so he didn't dare to put on airs in front of Li Zixuan. Hearing this, he thought for a while and replied, "Of course, it's very profitable to get people to fake matches, but the teams we found earlier weren't very strong. There weren't many people who thought that they would win, so the gambling house set very low odds for them to lose. All in all, Royal Uncle and I didn't make much money. At the end of the month, Imperial Uncle and I decided to do something big. We found a super strong team that was in the limelight this year, the Wind Thunder team. Their young master is called Zheng Qianjun. Imperial Uncle and I revealed our identities and threatened him to deliberately lose the game against the Firewolves team the next day. Although the Firewolves team is a First Division team, they're at the bottom of the First Division teams. They are no match for the Wind Thunder team. So there will be a lot of people who bet on the Wind Thunder team winning, and we bet on the Wind Thunder team losing, so we can make a fortune in one fell swoop. Do you mean that Zheng Qianjun agreed to fix the game for you?" Li Zixuan's face darkened. He interrupted Li Ke and asked. Li Zixuan valued Zheng Qianjun. The Wind Thunder team's current achievements were not 80% due to Zheng Qianjun, but at least 60%. So Li Zixuan arranged for him to be the tactical coach of the national team. But if he really agreed to fix the game for Li Ke and Li Yuanchang, Li Zixuan had to do things according to the law, no matter how much he thought highly of Zheng Qianjun. Li Ke nodded and said, "At that time, the young master of the Wind Thunder team did agree that we would deliberately lose to the Firewolves team. In order to win more money, Imperial Uncle and I went to the bank to ask Mr. Song for more money. Under the threat of Imperial Uncle and I, Mr. Song had no choice but to give us 700 strings of cash." Li Zixuan's heart suddenly sank. He said with an ugly face, "How much did you win in this game?" Li Ke said with a sad face, "We didn't win a single penny. We lost everything. That kid surnamed Zheng is not a good person. The day before, he clearly promised us that he would deliberately lose the game. But on that day, the players of the Wind and Thunder team did not show any modesty at all. They kicked the Firewolves team to 3-0. The more than 2,000 strings of money that we bet were all lost." Li Zixuan was stunned, but there was a glimmer of hope in his heart. He asked again, "You mean that Zheng Qianjun agreed to fix the game for you, but he didn't instruct the players to deliberately lose the game?" Li Ke said gloomily, "Yes." Seeing the boy's aggrieved face, Li Zixuan held back his laughter and said, "Then you didn't take revenge on him in private?" Li Ke said angrily, "Why didn't we take revenge? After the game, Uncle and I took a few guards to the Zheng family's house to find that bastard Zheng Qianjun. But the door of the Zheng family's house was closed. No one opened the door. The door of the Zheng family's house was so strong that it couldn't be opened even if we hit it with a piece of wood. In broad daylight, we couldn't make a big deal out of it, so we could only send people to guard outside the Zheng family's house. But after so many days, we didn't catch Zheng Qianjun. Li Zishuan nodded satisfactorily and said, "Well, you should be glad that you didn't catch Zheng Qianjun. Otherwise, if you caught him and tortured him, you and Prince Lu wouldn't be able to escape." Then he looked at Li Ku and said, "Little Ku, they not only misappropriated public funds, but also secretly bribed the team to fix the game. This seriously violates the Tang Empire's principle of fairness and justice. According to the rules, they should be handed over to the Supreme Court. What do you think? Marquis Yo and you dare? My father won't forgive you." Hearing this, Li Yuanchang immediately panicked. Li Ku said with fear, third brother, save me. I don't want to go to the Supreme Court. My father will kill me if he knows." Li Ku hesitated for a moment and looked at Li Zishuan and said, "Yamacho, Little Ku and Uncle are in the wrong. But if this matter is brought to the Supreme Court, my father, can you hand them over to me? I will report to my father and punish them by grounding them in the palace to reflect on themselves." Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and nodded. "Okay, I will give you face today, but first they have to pay for the money they misappropriated from the bank. Second, they have to give me the list of the teams that fixed the game. Third, they are forbidden to watch any game held by the Tang Empire's Football Association in the future." Chapter 1453. As early as when he promoted football, Li Zishuan expected that football betting would slowly rise along with football. Later, things did indeed develop in the direction he expected. Although he knew that football betting would harm people, it was a matter of mutual consent. He couldn't control it. To put it nicely, it was called a quiz. To put it bluntly, it was called gambling. However, although he couldn't control the people's football betting, he could control the teams that fixed the matches. When the Tang Football Association was first established, Li Zishuan said that any team or individual involved in fixing matches would forever be included in the Tang Football Association's blacklist. Players could no longer play football, team owners could no longer form teams, and people who bribed teams to fix matches would be banned from watching any football matches held by the Football Association. Serious cases would be directly handed over to the Supreme Court to deal with. Considering that Li Ku and Li Yuanchang didn't earn too much money because of this, instead, they lost everything, and that Li Ku was pleading for mercy. If this matter was brought to the Supreme Court, it would be very embarrassing for Li Er. Therefore, Li Zishuan finally handed these two little bastards over to Li Ku to deal with. Correspondingly, Li Ku also handed over the list of teams that were coerced by them to fix matches. Originally, there were a total of 4 teams. However, because the Wind and Thunder team put Li Ku and Li Yuanchang together, there were 3 teams that fixed matches: the Raging Bull team, the Cool Breeze team, and the Fire Phoenix team. Li Ku and Li Yuanchang were sent back to the palace. Now that things had developed to this point, it was impossible for Li Ku to help his brother hide it. Li Ku originally wanted to immediately enter the palace and report this matter to Li Zishuan, but Li Zishuan asked him to stay alone. "Little Ku, you should have been in the bank for 3 months, right? How do you feel? Did you encounter any problems?" Yinwang Bank back hall. At this time, only Li Zishuan and Li Ku were left. After the two of them sat down, Li Zishuan asked. Li Ku thought for a moment and replied, "I have been here for exactly 3 months. In the beginning, I was not familiar with many things in the bank. When I did things, I always felt that there were a lot of restrictions. After a period of time, I sorted out the affairs of the bank and did things much more smoothly. However, it's not that there are no problems." "Oh, tell me about it first," Li Zishuan said with a smile. Li Ku organized his words and opened his mouth. "I feel that there are too few people in the bank who know about the new mathematics and Yamacho's new accounting system. This will greatly affect the efficiency of the bank, and it is easy to make mistakes in the accounts. Once there's a mistake in the accounts, the loss will often be very big. So what I have done the most in the past 3 months is to check the accounts, but this is not a long-term solution. When the scale of our bank is bigger in the future, I will not be able to do two things at once. Talent. In the end, the banks still lack talents. Li Zixuan's new mathematics had only been introduced for less than a year. It was extremely difficult to find a group of bookkeepers who were proficient in the new mathematics and accounting system. This lack of talent situation might improve in a few years, but the bank could not wait. Li Zixuan frowned and thought for a moment, then said, "Actually, it is not difficult to solve this problem. Little Ku, you can recruit a group of students from Yanhuang College who are proficient in the new mathematics and accounting system. Hire them to the bank and use their weekends to check the accounts for the bank. This way, there are two benefits. First, it will allow the bank to operate efficiently and accurately. Second, these students will work part-time and part-time. They can use this to deepen their understanding of the knowledge that they usually learn from books, and they can also get in touch with the daily operations of the bank. When they graduate in the future, those students who are not interested in an official career can stay in the bank as bookkeepers. In terms of salary, they will definitely be able to ensure that their family will not have to worry about food and clothing." Yanhuang Bank's position in Tang Dynasty was equivalent to a modern-day bank or central bank. It was considered a large-scale, state-owned enterprise. Li Zixuan felt that assigning his students to work in the bank would not be a disgrace to Yanhuang College's reputation. "Yamacho, you intend to let the students of the college to work in the bank as bookkeepers?" Li Ku's eyes widened in disbelief. In the minds of the ancient people, there was no such thing as a state-owned enterprise. In their eyes, there was only the imperial court. Scholars studied and obtained scholarly honors in order to enter the imperial court and serve the country. They had never heard of anyone studying specifically to become bookkeepers. "Why? Little Ku, are you looking down on Yanhuang Bank? Do you feel that it is a waste of talent for the students of the college to stay here?" Li Zixuan's sharp eyes seemed to be able to see through people's thoughts. He looked at Li Ku and said with a faint smile, "No, no, could it not mean that?" Li Ku hurriedly said. Li Zixuan shook his head and said with a smile, "Little Ku, you have been in the bank for a long time. You should know what kind of place Yanhuang Bank is. Today, I can tell you with absolute certainty that in less than 3 years, Yanhuang Bank will become an existence that controls the entire economy of Tang Dynasty. Its importance is definitely not inferior to any of the 6 ministries in the imperial court. As such, do you still feel that it is a waste of talent for the students of the college to stay here?" Li Ku was a little shocked. However, after thinking about it carefully, Li Zixuan's words might not necessarily be true. He clasped his hands and said, "Yamacho's words are also what Ku hopes for. No matter what others think, Ku will never feel that it is a waste of talent to stay in the bank." Li Zixuan smiled. After pausing for a moment, he said, "Yanhuang College teaches engineering. Although there is a subject in the imperial court's imperial examinations, compared to the subjects such as Jinshu and Mingjing, the number of students admitted to this subject is much smaller. The number of students in Yanhuang College who can stand out in the imperial examinations every year is extremely small, and the number of students who can use engineering to gain a foothold in the imperial court is even rarer. Therefore, I feel that instead of letting the students be small officials in the 6 ministries and waste their time doing odd jobs for the officials, it is better to let them come to a place like Yanhuang Bank where they can truly display their strengths. Other than Yanhuang Bank, there is also the workshop of Chitu Pavilion. That place also needs them. Little Ku, don't look down on the workshop. This workshop is now the most technologically advanced workshop in Tang Dynasty. With the revolution of energy and power machinery, the workshop of Chitu Pavilion will become more and more advanced, so advanced that it will surpass this era. The students of Yanhuang College can use what they have learned to create wealth here. Wealth that will allow them to live their lives without worry. Master's position today is mostly due to engineering. In the future, among these students, there might be hundreds and thousands of master, hundreds and thousands of marquis. The meaning of these words was very simple. That was, if the imperial court did not want too many engineering students, then he wanted them. He did not mind having too many. This was a plan that had been buried in Li Zishuan's heart for a long time. It was called the Great Lantian Plan. In his view, since the imperial examination system of this era was mainly based on Confucianism and the imperial court did not want so many engineering students, then he would bring this group of students to Lantian County and create a world that would surpass this era. In any case, he was now the lord of Lantian County. There were many vacant positions under him. He had the ability to give these engineering students generous treatment and high social status. Chapter 1454. Yamacho. Now that Confucianism is in power, it is indeed difficult for engineering students to stand out. However, I am willing to help you. After listening to Li Zishuan's words, Li Ku was silent for a long time before he spoke. Oh, how do you plan to help me? Hearing this, Li Zishuan asked with a smile. Li Ku pursed his lips and said, in a few years, I will be going to Shu. Shu has been isolated from the Central Plains for a long time, and the conditions there are very backward. It is in need of large-scale construction to improve the living conditions of the people. At that time, if there are students from the college who are willing to go to Shu to be officials, I will gladly accept them. I believe that with the ability of our college students, it will not be a problem for them to benefit the people. Li Zishuan glanced at Li Ku and laughed. Ha ha, little Ku, you have seen Ku Shirqing's good deeds in Shu, so you want to recruit more students from the college to help you manage your fief, right? Don't be fooled by Li Ku's dignified words, as if he was helping Li Zishuan share his burden. In fact, Li Ku's actions were snatching talent from Li Zishuan. However, even though Li Zishuan knew Li Ku's true intentions, he was not angry. This was because the students of the college were free to choose where to develop in the future. Li Zishuan could not control them at all. If Li Ku had the ability to attract these talents to Shu, it could only be said that he was charismatic. Li Zishuan would not be angry about this. After being seen through by Li Zishuan, Li Ku was slightly embarrassed. He coughed dryly and said, Ahem, nothing can be hidden from Yamacho's eyes. Actually, what I am thinking is that the Central Plains is deeply influenced by Confucianism. Even if the engineering students have made outstanding contributions, it will be difficult for them to compete with Confucianism that has been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years. But Sichuan is different. Since the Qin and Han dynasties, it has been isolated from the Central Plains and is less influenced by Confucianism. As long as Ku can lead the students of the academy and make Sichuan a prosperous place, engineering will be able to gain a foothold there. Maybe Ku can even open a school similar to Yanhuang College there. I hope Yamacho will agree. Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh and said, Little Ku, you're helping me spread the seeds and leaves. What reason do I have to disagree? Pausing for a moment, he continued, just as you said, the study of engineering is indeed met with a lot of resistance in the current Great Tang, but I don't think this resistance is a problem. As more and more people realize that engineering can change the world, they will slowly accept it. Of course, if you want to develop engineering in Shu, it might not be a bad idea. This can also be considered as blossoming. Li Ku cupped his fists and said, What Mr. said makes sense. Then from now on, Ku and Mr. will work together to develop our skills. In the past, Li Ku was repulsed by Sichuan. After all, he had lived in Chang and since he was young. It was inevitable for him to have some resistance in his heart when he was asked to go to Sichuan, which was thousands of miles away. However, after talking with Li Zishuan, Li Ku even faintly looked forward to going to Sichuan as soon as possible, because leaving Chang was like a fish entering the sea. At that time, he could be like his idol, Li Zishuan, vigorously develop engineering in his fief and make the people there better. He was looking forward to the land of Sichuan being transformed into a true heaven on earth under his transformation. Li Zishuan nodded. Just as he was about to get up and leave, he suddenly thought of something and said to Li Ku, "Little Ku, I just saw on the account book that Yanhuang Bank's monthly income is more than 30,000 strings of coins. Is that right?" Hearing Li Zishuan suddenly ask this, Li Ku was a little confused. He paused for a moment, nodded and replied, "Indeed, in recent months, the number of merchants in Lantian County has skyrocketed. Countless shops have sprung up in the city like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. These merchants are opening shops and purchasing goods, so it's inevitable that they will encounter problems with funds. Thus, more and more people come to Yanhuang Bank to borrow money, and our income is also increasing. However, if this was a bank in other places, it might not be able to earn so much money. But if there are too many people borrowing money, it might not be a good thing. After all, the money in our bank is limited. At the end of every month, the bank will have a shortage of money. Many merchants want to borrow money, but they can't, so they can only borrow money from those big families who specialize in lending money. Moreover, the amount of Tang Yuan issued is closely related to the total wealth of Tang Empire. We can't just rashly print more Tang Yuan, so we can only watch as those merchants are exploited by those big families." Li Zishuan knew that Li Ku was telling the truth. After all, in the current Tang Empire, if one were to talk about the most prosperous places, it would only be Chang and in Lantian County. But if one were to talk about the place where the scale of business grew the fastest, it would only be Lantian County. The expansion of business required a large amount of liquidity, and the bank was a place that specialized in providing liquidity for merchants. Currently, the capital of the bank was mainly accumulated from the investments of the bank's shareholders and the profits from the bank's operations in the future. The bank's source of profit was, first, from collecting the fees from the commoners when exchanging copper coins for Tang Yuan, and second, from lending money to the merchants to generate profits. After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan said, "Little Ku, one must know how to be flexible when dealing with matters. Since the bank will encounter a shortage of money at the end of every month, then we should think of a way to attract more funds." Li Ku frowned and asked, "Yamacho, where should we go to find a source of funds?" Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Of course it's from the commoners. Previously, Little Ku, you were able to think of lending money to the merchants to generate income for the bank. Now, why didn't you think of using small profits to attract the commoners to deposit their money in the bank? You can post a notice to inform the commoners of Lantian County that as long as they deposit their copper coins in the Yanhuang Bank, not only will we not charge them the fees for exchanging copper coins for Tang Yuan, we will also give them a certain amount of interest. This interest is divided into current interest and fixed interest. Current interest means that there is no fixed deposit period. If the commoners need money, they can come to the bank to withdraw it at any time. Fixed interest means that the money cannot be withdrawn until the agreed-upon date. Therefore, the fixed interest rate is higher than the current interest rate. Those commoners who have extra money can deposit their money in the Yanhuang Bank. This way, not only can they ensure the safety of their property, but they can also earn extra interest. I think there will be many commoners who will be willing to deposit their money in the bank." Li Ku's eyes widened when he heard this. His face was full of disbelief. At this moment, his mind was already in a daze. After a while, he finally regained his senses. He swallowed his saliva and asked, "Mountain Elder, if we really release this notice, I can guarantee that our bank's doorstep will definitely be trampled down by the people who will flock to our bank. Are you sure we won't lose money like this?" Lose money? If a bank can lose money, then there is no business in this world that can make money. Li Zishuan muttered in his heart. Then he smiled and said, "Whether we will lose money or not, it will depend on Xiaoke's methods. I am only introducing you to a way to solve the problem. In this method, there is still a lot of room for manipulation. For example, the interest rate. When the bank is short of money, you can slightly raise the interest rate to increase the commoners' enthusiasm to save money. When the bank is not so short of money, you can adjust the interest rate to reduce the cost of the bank's deposit. There is a limit in the middle. You need to consider and balance all the factors. As for your worry that the bank will lose money, this worry is completely unnecessary. The interest rate of the bank will always be higher than the deposit rate. Also, money can only create more value when it is in circulation. If everyone hides their money in their own homes, then money will always be money. But if they keep their money in the bank, and the bank uses the money to help businessmen expand their business, then money can easily become two strings of money, or even more. That is why I told you before that there is a lot of knowledge in the bank. Using money to generate more money is the fundamental purpose of the bank's existence. Li Zixuan seriously pondered over Li Zixuan's words for a long time. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Listening to Yamacho's words is better than reading books for 10 years. The knowledge contained in the way of the economy is really mysterious and endless. Thank you, Yamacho, for your teachings today. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, Actually, Xiaoku, you have already done very well. When everything here is stable, I hope that you can return to the headquarters of the Yanhuang Bank in Chang, and city and shoulder more responsibilities. Our Yanhuang Bank is under the name of the Ministry of Revenue, but most of the officials in the Ministry of Revenue are old-fashioned. If we rely on them to manage the bank, I am afraid that in less than half a year, the bank will not be able to operate anymore. Therefore, the heavy responsibility of bringing the bank to greater heights still falls on your shoulders. There is nothing wrong with these words on the surface, but Li Ku felt that it sounded a little strange. After a moment of silence, he frowned and asked, Yamacho, what about you? Don't tell me that you intend to leave the bank alone. At this moment, he finally realized that something was wrong. Li Zixuan spoke too much today, as if he couldn't wait to impart all the knowledge in his mind to him. Li Ku suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart, and his whole body suddenly became nervous. Li Zixuan was silent for a long time, then sighed and said, Master has more important things to do. But if the bank encounters any problems in the future, Xiaoku, you can still come to me. Li Ku didn't ask Li Zixuan what the more important things were, because he knew that if Li Zixuan wanted to talk about it, he would have told him directly. Since he didn't say anything, it meant that Li Zixuan didn't want to talk about it. Li Ku naturally wouldn't force him. Let's not talk about this anymore. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little stagnant, Li Zixuan laughed and broke the silence. The reform measures that I told you about earlier must be tested in Lantian County, because the demand for money here is large enough. In addition, not only can the bank lend money to merchants, but it can also lend money to the commoners. Now that the commoners in Lantian County are living well, some of the smarter commoners will want to make a living. The bank can lower the interest rate and lend them some money to create more wealth. Li Ku was puzzled. Merchants can use their shops as collateral to borrow money, but what can the commoners use as collateral to borrow money? Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, they can use land deeds, but when the amount borrowed is small, they don't have to use collateral. They're all from the same county, so even if they want to take the money and go far away, they can't go far. In ancient times, most of the commoners were more honest. Farmers were more conservative, and they didn't like to owe money to others. If they did, they would pay it back as soon as they had the money. If they delayed it for another day, they wouldn't be able to eat or sleep well. Therefore, Li Zixuan wasn't worried that the commoners would renege on their debts. Li Ku nodded and said, Yamacho's words make sense. In the future, if the commoners of Lantian County need anything, the bank will definitely lend them money. After leaving the bank, Li Zixuan went straight home. Firstly, it was getting late, and it was time to go home for dinner. Secondly, he was going to the Black Armored Army's camp soon. Before he went, he had to spend some time with his family. He was comfortably going home to spend time with his family, but there were some people who weren't feeling well. One was Li Tai, and the other was Chung Chumo. Around noon, Li Tai went to the workshop to look for Mo Lingwei to learn some technology. Mo Lingwei used the force-feeding method to teach Li Tai the principles of the workshop's newest products, such as DC motors, batteries, and diodes. Li Tai was busy wandering around the workshop, trying to understand everything that Mo Lingwei explained to him. He worked all the way until nighttime. Poor Wei Wang. He had to work overtime in the workshop at night. If word got out, no one would believe it. Now, He and Liku were brothers in the same boat. One was fighting in the bank, and the other was researching new technology in the workshop. Although it was hard work, the two brothers were willing to endure it. Hey, this electric bike is so fun to ride. It's so much better than riding a horse. No, I can't return the bike to Xiao Xin so soon. I have to ride it for 2 more days. In the evening, Cheng Chumo rode the electric bike that he borrowed from Li Zixuan. He was like a young man, attracting the attention of all the passers-by. He couldn't help but mutter to himself on the bike. F asterisk CK. So majestic. At this moment, Cheng Chumo saw a woman riding a bicycle towards him. Of course, that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the woman had a particularly spectacular body part. As the bicycle bumped along the road, Cheng Chumo's eyes widened. Bam! As the saying goes, extreme joy begets sorrow. All happiness is destined to have a price to pay. Cheng Chumo was so focused on looking at the beautiful woman that he forgot to look at the road. With a bang, he and his car crashed into a newly erected electric pole on the side of the road. Ouch! Help! Soon, Cheng Chumo's painful howls came from under the electric pole. That sound was really miserable. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.